Testing, testing. This stream will be going live momentarily. And we are live at the 2 minute and 30-second mark. This is take 2 of the Ash and Bats Bat Show, episode 3. My name's Ash.
And I'm Bats.
And yeah, if you were actually participating with us on the stream, you got to see our complete foobar. And if you weren't and you're watching this later, then we were awesome. We didn't miss a beat. So Bats, what's going on with you?
So I'm just working out a lot, trying to get back in shape because round is not a shape.
Well, it kind of is.
No, it's a description of a shape. So I'm going.
So Ryan Johnson's head is not a shape, is what you're saying?
No, it's a perfectly round head.
But it's not a shape. He doesn't have a shape head. Okay.
It's a description of a shape.
I see. All right. So just trying to get yourself up in shape, doing some weightlifting.
Yeah, a mix of a little bit of cardio and a bit of weightlifting. I hate cardio, so I'm forcing myself to try to find the enjoyment in it. Oh. And I realized that I could watch YouTube on the treadmill.
Nice, yeah, you can.
And so I watched a Zach video today while running on the treadmill.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate cardio. I hate exercise. I'm old. When you get to my age, buddy, like it's just fucking, it feels like death. And I've always had respiratory issues anyway, so it's been difficult for me, especially when cardio stuff is concerned. And in my genetics, I've always been like a bulky boy. Got my German and Norwegian heritage.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah. So stay on top of the curve is what I would say. Because when you get 10 years from now, you don't want to be like me, where it's just like, oh God, I'm dying. Because it goes fast. You'll like wake up one day and you'll be like, how did I get here? All right, we're starting this show on a happy note. Tahiling 29. Thanks for joining us. We saw some chat stuff from you earlier, and we were talking to you like the whole time, and our audio didn't work, so we look like idiots. You were talking about being in Australia. I didn't know you were in Australia, and then you were talking about your pull list, and I asked you which you didn't hear me. What did you get any highlights? Like, what did you get in your pull? That if you want that you wanted to share or maybe talk about. And while I'm waiting for you to type that, Bats, did you get anything recently that's interesting or cool or want to talk about?
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of good books this week. I'm kind of just flipping through them all right now. Obviously, we both got Detective.
Oh yeah, did you read that?
I have not read that.
Oh, me
I am
neither.
I am looking forward to it. But a book I'm actually really looking forward to this week is The Silencer number 13.
Yeah, I got to catch up on that because I dipped out when Patch got on. I was like, "Fuck this! I ain't not paying for his sorry ass. I'm not. I don't pay for Contempt." So I dipped out, but he was like only a fill-in artist, and I was like, "Ah, oh, man."
Yeah.
So I went back and I bought the two back. Well, I already had one of the issues because I didn't realize that they had put them on the book. So I got home and I was all pissed. I was like, "Damn it! You got my money." So I canceled it, and then so I only had to get one issue, and I didn't feel too bad because it was a back issue. So I was like, you know what? It's not really seeing this money because this is back issue. Like this just goes to the store. This
Mm-hmm.
is a write off. So it kind of dawned on me when I was buying that. I was like, you know, if you want comics and you don't want to support, you know, like I thought about you as a matter of fact. Like you like Aquaman, and we've talked about this. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't care who writes it. I'm gonna get Aquaman no matter what because he's my boy. And I'm like, oh, that's why I was thinking about that, and I was like, you know what you could do is just not buy it. You know, wait 6 months or hopefully, God, like in hopefully Kelly's run is like short, and then you just go pick them up at bulk at a discount. You know, and oftentimes you can get full sets like on eBay, like
Mm-hmm.
cheap. Like I got the entire set of Exo Manowar. Well, up to I think I got 1 through 17 for like pennies on the dollar. You know, like if I would have bought them at cover price, and usually back issue bare minimum is cover price plus a quarter or something. So, you know, I would have paid through the nose, but because I bought a bulk pack on eBay, um, I saved quite a penny.
Yeah, but what I was saying about the silencers, this issue is 13, and for the last 12 issues, it's just been nonstop action pack adventure. With this issue is the secret origin of the silencer. So I was like, oh, cool, we're finally gonna get some back, some background on besides just what we've been told in small amounts of dialogue.
Okay. So Tahalim says that he also picked up Detective Comics, Amazing Spider-Man. Didn't like the art that much. Surprise, surprise! It's Marvel. Silencer. Um, he picked up wasn't on his pull list though. Batman Beyond, Books of Magic, Fight Club, Heroes in Crisis, Raven, Teen Titans Annual. Seems like his taste is similar to ours. How is Books of Magic? I read the original one back in the '90s. You know, the Neil Gaiman one. That's a really, really cool book. And I know I was kind of disappointed when I heard when they were bringing the new one back because apparently they were just like ditching the whole original '90s series, like as if it didn't happen. I was like, what? Why would you do that? So I was like, oh, F it then. I'm not even going to pay attention to this new Books of Magic.
You got man eaters. That's shocking.
Whoa, whoa! I just said it's man eaters. All right. While we're talking, Talim, you need to type up some sort of explanation for man eaters, please, please. And Melissa, aka Matthew Harris tag, welcome back. She
I
says
like DC classics too.
she likes classic DC. Now that's obviously my weakness. I've come in as I'm a rebirth DC boy. I've very little. I dabbled in some Batman issues back in the '90s and stuff, but um, I don't know much in DC at all, and it's such an overwhelming, monumental thing to like dive into DC. I just want to be like rebirth, start. That's it. I don't want to have to go. It's so much. There's so much I don't know.
It's the same. It's the same with Marvel. Like there's a lot of for me, I like Spider-Man, I like Fantastic Four, and I like uh, the Heroes for Hire characters, and Daredevil as well. So it's like I kind of picked my corners when it comes to Marvel, and those are just the corners I stay in. And occasionally I dabble, but I don't stray too far, you know. So
Yeah, you're kind of
I
close-minded that way.
I am no shame in my game.
Shout out Pilfer Pup Art is joined in the chat.
Yes, that's my buddy that I was telling you about who
Oh,
does the live stream art videos.
oh,
So
sick, sick. We'll have to
yeah,
check out one of those videos sometime.
yeah, he has a cool style. He has a kind of a I don't know how to describe it without just calling it Pokemon, but he had he has like an anime creature style.
I don't know how to describe his art style other than it's basically a total rip-off of Pokemon.
He knows I'm just joking, but yeah, he has a. I mean, I don't know if you can see his avatar that well. I know you're an old man, and it's hard for you to see.
I am. My eyes are bad.
Uh,
I can see it. I mean, I'm looking at a very, very small avatar, and I'm looking at it from a little bit distance. At first glance, it actually kind of looks kind of, oh God, now I'm just drawing a Star Fox.
yeah, he's very influenced by Nintendo.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that's a cool style. I like that style in the Nintendo. Um, so yeah, Pilfer Pup, if you're listening, feel free to plug your channel in the chat. We'll go check it out later.
I'm subbed, so if I'm subbed, you should be subbed.
Yeah, well, what about all the audience? We have thousands of
Yeah.
viewers, Bats.
As
They're
well
not
as
all subbed.
yeah, all the thousands of viewers should be subbed to
Oh,
Pillar per Puff.
all right.
I feel like I could never say that name right.
Nice. Well, welcome to our totally amazing show. We put on nothing but the best quality programming here. I'm drinking a nice glass of Maker's Mark right now. What are you drinking?
I'm drinking only the finest Gatorade Fierce, Bold, and Intense Green Apple.
Hmm. Yeah, very manly drink. Are you an Appletini drinker?
I'm not actually.
Okay, good. I was gonna have to cancel the show right now.
I do wear apple bottom jeans though, with boots with the fur.
I don't even know what those are.
You haven't heard that song?
No,
Really?
I'm an old man. Who sings this song?
I don't know, but it was like you remember the do you remember when they had what was it called ringtone rap?
No.
So there was like a period before mumble
Sounds
rap.
gay.
Yeah, so there was a before mumble rap. Like
And I don't mean
remember
that in
like
the homophobic way. So any SJWs are watching this later and want to clip it
oh
up.
yeah.
And
Oh
be like,
that
oh,
shit.
he's so homophobic. Look what he said. No,
I mean, I would be very impressed if like SJW Spider-Man like took that clip of the show and he's like, look at Ash, he hates women
dude,
and he hates
I would love. That would be such great promotion. I would.
Dude.
I'd cut him a check.
So instead of talking about ringtone rap, let's talk about Twitter.
Twitter, oh, dude, that's been monopolizing my time. Like seriously,
It pretty much stole your life for the last couple of days.
It has. It really has. I don't know if anyone else is on Twitter, and if you are, I'm sorry. But if you are, and you should be following me and Bats, and if I'm not following you, let me know. I will definitely follow you. I do a 1-for-1 on Twitter. It's only fair. But I recently made this comment to make mine milkshake. God, Heather Antos. I'm like drawing a blank on her name, which you'd think was strange, right? Because according to all the SJWs, I'm obsessed with her. But
For a little context, let the audience know who Heather Antos is.
Heather Antos is a former editor at Marvel Comics. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, a former assistant editor at Marvel Comics. That despite what SJWs want you to believe, the strong narrative, she does actually have a reputation of getting her job not for merit, but for physical properties, such as her looks and possibly favors. I don't know. This is a reputation. I am not accusing her of anything. I don't know. But I do know that other people have this opinion. And if enough people have an opinion of someone and it's the same, that's called a reputation. So, a little over a year ago, there's the famous milkshake incident in which Heather tweeted out a picture of her and all the female editors at Marvel Comics, which, by the way, it's kind of important to note this because a few years prior to this, Marvel Comics was dominated by males. Comics has always been a male industry. This is whether you like it or not, it's not misogynistic. It's just comics have been for boys, right? G.I. Joe toys are for boys. Boy Scouts are for boys. Comics were for boys. That doesn't mean that girls can't have an interest in it. It just wasn't the target audience, right? You know, like boys can be interested in Barbie dolls. That's not the target audience. So comics were always, because of that, a boys' club. So since boys grew up reading comics, boys grew up being comic pros. Like, you don't just see people who are like, I have no interest in comics, and all of a sudden I'm going to be a pro. That just doesn't happen. And that's why there's not many women in comics, or there didn't used to be. But now, all of a sudden, in a period of just a couple years, Marvel went from 20-80 female to male ratio to 80-20, which is a super lopsided flop, and received a lot of criticism from the fan community, which is now labeled as Comicsgate mostly. And during this time, Marvel Comics was doing things like making Captain America a Nazi, making Thor a woman, replacing Iron Man with a little black girl, replacing Hulk with a little Asian boy. I mean, they were doing everything they could to remove white males from mainstream Marvel. Fans are getting upset and basically connecting the dots and saying, we think this is a problem. You have a feminist social agenda. It's obvious by the fact that you're just getting rid of all the men editors and replacing them with all these women that don't even have a history in comics, don't know what they're doing. They're getting hired for their looks and not for merit, and blah, 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 blah. Now, these are not my opinions. This is me restating just the history and what other people have believed. Well, during this time, during the big heat of everything, which, so by the way, during this time, the pros did not react accordingly well. They responded with, well, F you guys. You guys are just like those Gamergate guys, but you're Comicsgate. And they gave the name to us, Comicsgate. We did not name ourselves. Any SJW that tries to tell you otherwise does not know the history. Or they're just a liar, which is probably the case, or both. So, at this time, fans were at their peak of outrage and upset, and Marvel was not just not listening to them, but actively insulting them, and so fans were outraged. In the middle of this outrage, Heather Antos, having a pulse on the community and really knowing how to win back the affection of the fans, decides to post this ludicrous picture of her and all the female editors sucking down milkshakes and being like, hey, and taking the famous Make Mine Marvel saying and changing it to Make Mine Milkshake. And so many fans just went livid, as using this as hey, this is an example of everything that's wrong, and here's make some fucking good comics. We don't want to see you posting about how you're buying milkshakes.
Can you bring up the milkshake image?
Oh, shit.
Come on.
We're always prepared here.
Always prepared.
Always prepared.
Well, in the meantime, so as Ash is searching for this famous image, as I was scrolling through Twitter, I had seen a tweet that my colleague here shared that simply just said, could you have your shirt more unbuttoned? And she did. She pretty much had it down to the last two buttons, and they were tucked into her shirt. And when she's fighting a reputation of, hey, I'm here on merit, not based on my looks, and she's sharing this tweet of her that it could be considered provocative to some. Me, I thought it was very basic. It was just like, oh yeah, girls showing off pictures of themselves on the internet, big deal. Uh, and that's all it really was. And Ash just kind of commented, and which then turned into a literal, uh, not a literal, but a total shitstorm. It turned like, uh, it just snowballed, and the swarm of SJWs just came out from all the woodworks. It was like their programming clicked in, and they all got the message. Like, Heather Antos is being attacked by Comicsgate. Must defend. Must must defend. Must defend. And their programming all just clicked in all at the same time, and he got it. So much he also made the list of this is Comicsgate. There's a website called This Is Comicsgate where they try to find pretty much all the worst things said on the internet that day by Comicsgate. And normally they're just like this. They're stupid, and they're always stupid because the majority of Comicsgate is just normal people who are like, hey, can we just have better comics? Here's a mild troll and roast at you. Which is the same thing on here. It's like, hey, could your shirt be more unbuttoned? And so, did you find the image?
Yeah, it's up. Well, no, I didn't transition it. There we go.
I'm not seeing
It
it.
usually takes about 2 seconds delay.
Yeah, well, it's delaying harder than that.
It's on my screen. You must be really lagged.
Okay.
So on there, I got the picture. This is the photo they tweeted. Now, in a vacuum, this picture is completely harmless, right? A couple girls. All right, 7 girls like drinking some milkshakes. Well, the reason why this became an issue is because people commented on it. We're like, what the fuck? Like, make some comics, you know? Like, you're making out shit comics, and then you're posting about how you're having basically parties at Marvel. Now,
There was also
last I checked, there were like 3 kind of like
there was a couple of comments that they always bring up. Like 2 people are like, "Oh yeah, I had sex with the girl in the front," right? Which
no, I would have.
oh yeah, something like that. Like,
yeah, like I would do her or something.
I would totally bang the girl in the front.
Right.
And then they pretty much construed that as like,
which, by the way, that girl in the front is Heather Antos.
Yeah.
Now, what happened is that Heather spun this and played this super victim mentality and was like, oh, woe's me, I'm being harassed night and day by Comicsgate. They're a bunch of evil bastards. And what really gets my goat on this is there's a woman, Flo. What was her last name, Bats? Flo?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm bad. I'm slate. Flo, I should know because I'm sitting here trying to. Like,
she was an editor at Marvel back in the 60s and 70s.
Right, back when they didn't have women, right? So stupid. So she had passed away, and now in the original tweet that Heather makes, she had hashtag like remember Flo or something like that. Right, so she did have that in her original tweet, but her original tweet doesn't say anything about Flo, like rest in peace Flo, or we'll always remember, like nothing about that. Furthermore, there's over 600 tweets. When I checked this like months ago, there was over 600 tweets in this thread. Not a single one, Bats, mentions Flo. Not one single one. So a few days later, after all the hostility came out about this thing, and fans were like, what are you doing? Go back to work, blah, blah, making their comments and stuff like that. They decided to post like, this was a celebration of the death of Flo. Like, we were remembering her, and you guys turned it into something evil, da 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 da. And I was like, bullshit. Bullshit. There was not one single mention. If you're telling me you're gonna celebrate this woman and remember her death, and you're not even gonna put like in a tweet somewhere like "rest in peace." I was like, that is outrageous. Like, not only is it outrageous that you're accusing us, who are innocent of this lie, that we're trying to defame this person's memory, but you are weaponizing it based on something you did that didn't even have to do with her. Oh, the hypocrisy astounds me. I'm getting livid just even talking about this. So to wrap this up, like, in my Twitter, as Bats was so saying, let's see if I can get this thing going. Transition that over. Let's cover up Heather's face.
Aw, she's so pretty though.
She's not that pretty. I mean, she's attractive, but so you may not know how well you're going to be able to see what's on the screen, but I got it here, and this was the original tweet that I did. Now, in this tweet, can I read it here? Get my thing. I say, posting pics like this, could the shirt be less unbuttoned, is a good way to straighten up an image that you feel is undeserved. Facepalm. That's what I said. Now, I know that that's probably the nastiest thing that anyone could ever say to anyone. I feel like really horrible. I could have probably said something nicer, like die of dick cancer.
Which has been said.
Or someone should take a baseball bat to this woman's teeth. Or we should, what was it that Ren said about the gays? We're going to fire hose all the gays. Renfamous said. Or that little girl, that little 8-year-old girl, however old she was, that her dad should throw her off a bridge. Like, I know I could have said something nice along those lines, but I chose to be just diabolic and say, facepalm, this is probably not helping your image. And holy shit, did the SJWs come out in like you'd think I walked through a fire ant hill, like a mountain, like just I mean, I was getting hundreds of tweets per hour. Now I know what it feels like to be Zach and Ethan Van Sciver. And they were just making up all sorts of lies. The lies just would not stop. And today I was answering one by this guy who was accusing me of like saying something, and I was like, "You're a liar. I never said that." And he responds back. He's with a quote tweet, like a picture. He's like, "Here's proof." Da, 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 da. And he's like trying to like talk to all the SJWs. Like, look at this guy. And I'm like, in your stupid proof, the very first line says the opposite of what you said. Like, oh, he was trying to say that I said that all comics were garbage for the past 20 years. And in the very first line of my tweet that he quotes me, I say, there are good comics. I'm like, this is your proof that I said all comics are garbage? Like, are you a moron? Like, but this is how brazenly they lie. I knew that they lied, Bats. Like, I knew. Like, but this is like a whole nother, like, I didn't even I was not aware. Like, are you kidding? Like, they will literally show you, look, here's a picture of a blue sky. It's red. Proof. You're like, can you be more? I've never seen anyone so bald face on a lie. Like, it just, I'm face palming right now I can't fathom it. But yeah, so that's what I've been going on. That's what's been going on with Twitter for me. And if you enjoy shitstorms, if you're one of those like hurricane chasers, tornado chasers, you like that, by all means, dive in. If you just value your sanity, stay away. We'll just bring you the highlights. What's going on with you, Bats?
I don't have any Twitter fun like you, where I got swarmed by 700 SJWs in a day. I kind of envy it. I was just like, man, I wish people would notice me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just all negative attention, and it's just a shitstorm. Oh my
No,
god.
yeah. Uh, I am fascinated by like the craziness of Twitter because a lot of times I just tweet and nothing ever comes of it. I'm just like, oh, okay, whatever. Oh, I thought it was funny. So
Well, and that's
that's
that's my case too. I so many times I tweet and nothing comes of it. And so this particular tweet, I admit, it was a bit snarky, right? Like I'm not trying to play like I'm an angel. Like I was making a snarky like, this is a good way to get rid of your image, right? But I didn't accuse her. I didn't say, "Hey, you're a slut. Why are you posting this?" Which is what a lot of the SJWs are trying to say. I was like, I didn't say that. I was basically acknowledging the elephant in the room, which is, to some people, she's got this image. Now, that image could be a complete lie, but it still exists. Like, that's a perception that some people have. And if you're fighting that image, if you spent your time like over a year battling and saying these people are victimizing me and harassing me and saying that if that's what you're doing, like for instance, if you're an alcoholic, Bats, right? Right? And so people are just like, man, you got a drinking problem. And you're just like, I know, but or you're like, no, I don't. I don't have a drinking problem. And like, no, you do. You really freaking have a drinking problem. No, I don't. No, I don't. And then you decide to go on Twitter and like post like pictures of you drinking. Do you think that's like not even drinking, like just posting a picture with you with like a glass of wine? In a vacuum, a person drinking a glass of wine is no big deal. In a vacuum, Heather Anto's posting a selfie of her in a mirror posing. It's no big deal. It's nothing wrong. She didn't do anything wrong. But she's battling an image, which is what I commented on. And I did it in a very snarky manner to be like, and so I can understand her being pissed off, like her being annoyed. At most, what I kind of considered when I was thinking in my head when I posted this is that she would look at it, roll her eyes, and just be like, "Oh, internet asshole," and move on. Right? Like,
at least you admit it.
well, right? I mean, I don't think that she's like happy. Like she does. I don't think her view of Comicsgate people are that they're like good people. I'm not kidding myself, and I don't think posting like this, if you're just a stranger on the internet and you post this, that she should just be like, you know what? I bet there's good in him. Like I don't see I'm not expressing a reason for her to believe that, but I'm not also doing anything that's just like worthy of like screaming at the Capitol footsteps like when Trump got elected, like just
I
like,
love
are you
that video.
fucking serious? Like, come on. There's fucking people dying in the world from fucking socialism. Like, Venezuela people are eating their pets. Like, this is what you're outraged about? All right, so you don't got anything in Twitter. I don't think these
Yeah.
guys want to hear me bitch about Twitter. Is there anything in the chat? Do we miss DCFU, by the way? Okay. If anyone sees DCFU, we got to make sure we say hi. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
One of my friends of mine.
Yeah.
Apparently, I accidentally ignored him.
I think he was messing with us.
I don't know. He doesn't lie. He's an honest person.
Pup says #drama so interesting.
All right, Pill for Pup. We're sorry that we're making a good impression on you. We're done with this. I want to see something in the chat worth commenting on. Watched MHA season. Oh, My Hero Academia season. There's something interesting.
There it is.
Oh, Tehalim, what did you think of season 2? Needs to catch up on his manga. Up to date on MHA Evangel. I started Vigilantes. I had to stop only because I'm so behind on my comics. I had to be like, stop, Ash. Go read your comics that you needed to review and stuff. And I'm like,
hey, Pill for Pup, are you watching My Hero Academia? I know you're a big anime guy.
Dude, if you are an anime person, you got to watch My Hero Academia. It's astoundingly good. Like I went into it just being like, oh, kind of rolling my eyes because I'm an old school anime fan, but I'm one of those like highbrow kind of snobby anime fans. So like 95% of anime, I just like stick my nose up. I'm like, I'm this weird person. So when everyone was like freaking about My Hero Academia, I looked at it just on the surface. I'm like, it looks just like another goofy, typical anime. And I was like, whatever. But then I tried it. The first 2 issues were a little bumpy for me. I was like, I don't know if this is going to sell me. But by the time I got about 4 episodes in, I was like, oh, there's something to this. And it just kept getting better. And I'm telling you, man, one of my favorite anime episodes of all time, of like any anime, is I'm pretty sure it's number 50. It could be 51, but I'm pretty sure it's the episode 50. And I don't want to say anything because Tehalim's not there yet. That's on season 3. Oh man, so good.
You know what's never gonna outdo the best anime episode for me is Goku going Super Saiyan for the first time.
Oh my god, the best anime episode you've ever seen is a Dragon Ball episode.
Dragon Ball Z episode.
oh, forgive me.
But yeah, it's just like the intensity, the build up, the shock factor. You're just like, you just you just couldn't. You knew it was coming because the internet, but finally seeing it happen for the first time was awesome.
Yeah, I can see that if you're like a fan and you're really invested in the show. I mean, that's part of why I think episode 50 of My Hero had the impact. I mean, if I had just watched that episode by itself, I wouldn't have had that. But the investment, that build up.
I don't think I'm to 50 yet either.
Oh man, I'll tell you, just nothing spoiler, but it involves All Might, and it's an epic scene with All Might. And so when you see this episode,
I already know what's gonna happen.
You're gonna know. Okay, you're gonna see the episode, and you're gonna be like, "This is the one Ash is talking about."
Yeah.
And it just
right on.
I loved it. Furthermore, with My Hero Academia, if you like superheroes, right? It's one of the best modern superhero stories, and it's killing me because I'm a huge superhero fan and I love Western comics, and I'm just like, holy shit, the Japanese are doing it better, and they're doing it in so many levels. They're doing it where they're covering like all these different bases. They have the aspirational hero in Midoriya, who's essentially Superman, right? Not necessarily like in power set, but Superman in like spirit. He's like the ultimate
personality.
Yeah, he's the ultimate good guy. He just wants to help the world. He's the kind of hero that no one could really be.
Good guy Greg.
Besides what?
He's a good guy Greg.
No, that's a different kind of thing. But and also he's got potential for real power, right? You can kind of see like, oh, he's got this power. So, I really like that. But then you've got all these other heroes, which are kind of metaphors for the modern Western comics, like especially in Marvel, where they're not really heroes anymore. They're more like braggarts. It's like, hey, look at me, I'm badass. Oh, look at me, I'm whooping this villain's ass, and I'm gonna take a selfie of myself because I'm cool. Oh yeah, you're the best. That's like Marvel Comics today. It's just like self-aggrandizing characters that have supporting characters that all they do is emotionally validate the self-aggrandizing character. And they just like show off. That's like, they're show-offs. Like there's nothing heroic about Marvel characters anymore. It makes me ill. And I'm just like, what happened to like the characters you could look up to? What happened to the like the Spider-Man who was weighed down with his uncle's death, and like he could have saved him, and he has this power, and it's like, I can't ever let that happen again, but he's like fumbling to pay the rent, and he's awkward, and he's trying to get this relationship with like the hottest girl in town, and and his Aunt May, he's always worries about his Aunt May, who's, in the old days, Aunt May was like, you thought she was gonna drop dead at any moment. She was so old. You just like looked up to you could both identify with Peter Parker as like a person and see little bits of yourself in there, And then you could also like look up to and be like, man, all this stress and strain you're going through, and yet you still, after working a shitty job where your boss just yells at you all, J. Jonah Jameson not only yells at you all the time, but he's like talking shit about your alter alias. Like, so you constantly have to listen to him, say like how evil Spider-Man is, and you are Spider-Man. Like, you're taking it and you have to like bite your tongue. You have to work this shitty job, and then you have to come home and you're like, oh, now I'm going to go out and like fight crime for free. I don't get paid for it. Like, he didn't sit home and play Xbox. He's not, like, this is a character that you could look up to, and Marvel's like lost this about him, and they've just, they turned him into a deadbeat. He's like not good enough to be with Mary Jane anymore. And it's like, dude, this was like the story of, like the idea that nice guys finish last, right? Like, Peter Parker was the nice guy that finished first. You were just like, yes. And if you were a comic book nerd, you were like, right, this is the guy. You always see like the hot chicks always bitch about, my boyfriend's a dick. It's like, yeah, because you're dating a fucking dick. Go date a nice guy. There's about 1 billion nice guys on the planet that would love to date you because you're hot as shit, but you won't give them another look because you will only date pricks. And like, if you're a guy, unless you're the hot, the prick guy that gets all the hot chicks, if you're not that guy, you're identifying with what I'm saying. And so guys reading, and a lot of those guys are reading comics, right? So they go, oh yeah, Peter Parker, score, like, and then what do? They break it up. And I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
Yeah, there's there, believe it or not, Nick Spencer is progressively and slowly rebuilding Spider-Man into the character he's supposed to be, which is completely shocking for a guy who turned Captain America into a Nazi.
Yeah, that is. But, that could have been an editorial decision. That may not have been Nick Spencer.
No, yeah, absolutely. Like, so moving on.
Hey, real quick before we move on, I want to shout out son of Carmelo joined the chat. Comic Quirks joined the chat. So howdy to those folks. Melissa asked a question, why is All Might dying in Hero Academia? It's because he suffered a very, very grievous wound that will never heal properly. And so he can't use his power to its full extent anymore because it's like destroying his body. And there's a little bit more to the fact that it's kind of spoiler material. So I won't go more into that, but that's the basics.
It's basically
just watch the show. What it's so good.
It's kind of who gave him that wound, kind of.
Oh yeah, well there's that too, but no, there's also more. The passing of the torch is kind of an issue, so there's more. So Comics Quirks, good to see you. I've already said that. Sorry, you were changing the subject, Bats. Go ahead.
I was changing the subject. So, you have anything that you're excited about in this week's of comics? Or just comics in general?
Detective Comics 997. I'm going to be reading that right after the show, unless me and Bats sit and talk all night. Which could happen.
No way. I got to go to work in the morning.
Heard that one before.
Yeah. you always trick me into this long conversation.
No, so 997 is, I'm really stoked. The last issue, which is the third issue of the arc, so I'm going to call it last issue number 3, this new issue number 4, was a little bit of a step down, which isn't to say anything negative really about the book, because it's just that's how good the second book was. The second book might be one of the best comics I have read published in the past year. It's utterly fantastic. It's one of the few comics that's ever like stirred me to being a little teary-eyed. And it had me kind of on pins and needles. Like, it took me on an emotional roller coaster ride. And a lot of comics, it takes a lot for comics to do that. The first comic started off really strong, and I was like, oh yeah, this is good, it's so good. And then unbeknownst to me, I was like, the second one's even better. And the third one took a little bit of a dip, which I don't fault it for, because you can't ride that high all the time. You need to take a breather. It did some really cool exploration with characters like Descartes, which I don't really know much about. it lost me a little bit with this whole mutating monster thingy. And I'm like, that's weird. But it's still really good, and it's still like, oh my god, we're building up to Detective Comics 1000. And unlike Action Comics 1000, I feel like this is something. Like, I feel like Detective Comics 1000 is going to be huge, you know, like, not just in a monetary success, but like, I actually am like, oh, this is going to be like wrapping up a awesome story. Whereas Action Comics 1000 just sort of felt like,
Well,
hey, it's the
they
1000, you know.
they wrapped up their storylines, kind of, sorta, between the two Superman books. Did 1000 and then passed it off to Bendis.
Well, they didn't even wrap up the storylines in Superman. They
They
had to
did,
do that Superman special #1.
and they did it with Action as well.
Oh god, stupid.
So I have this thing where I always look at the last page,
Oh,
and so
Tehillim also, I forgot the last issue. That's a huge point. Tehillim mentions last issue of Detective Comics had the Miracle Man appearance.
yes,
And I didn't know until I watched someone's video. I don't remember whose video it was. I was like, if you watched my review of it, I was like, is this Miracle Man? Like, I'm all ignorant, right? I'm like, it looks like Miracle Man, but I don't remember.
Mr. Miracle,
So,
Mr.
Mr. Miracle?
Not Miracle Man. That's a crappy Marvel character that's not owned by Marvel.
You're
created
correct.
by
I'm
Alan.
saying Miracle Man because Tehillim said that. You're right.
I'm correcting both of you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for
You're
the
welcome.
Mr. Miracle. I was like, is this Mr. Miracle? I was like, but he doesn't look like Mr. Miracle. And so I watched someone else's video, and they explained that this is the original Mr. Miracle. I was like, there's an original Mr. Miracle? Like,
yeah, there's 3 of them.
Oh, geez, so figures. It's DC. I'm surprised there's not like 10. You sure there's not like Kid Mr. Miracle?
There should be.
Miracle Lad?
There should be.
So stupid. Miracle Dog?
That'd be awesome. A dog that can escape, like,
so stupid.
out of any like leash.
Oh, so
stupid. You can tie the dog up to like any tree, and he can get like untied.
So, anyways, so I want to address that because you obviously, I was like, oh, I gotta talk to Bats about this because he knows DC Comics a lot more than me. Like, so what's up with that? Fill me in as a noob.
I was like, wait, that's that one Mr. Miracle I don't know about.
Oh shit.
Like, well, there's 2 of them actually. I know Scott Free.
Right, he's the current Mr. Miracle.
He's like the definitive Mr. Miracle. It's kind of like,
Also
you know how like
Mr. Miracle.
Yeah, like, you know how like there's like Ted Kord,
right,
and he's like the definitive Blue Beetle, but there's like a Golden Age Blue Beetle, and then there's like a 2008 2010 version of Blue Beetle where he's got like an alien Iron Man style suit.
I don't know. I know like the new kid, some like Mexican kid or something.
Yeah. That Jaime Reyes, right?
Yeah. Dumb.
I really like that character, but
I flipped like through 3 pages and I was like, I'm tuned out. This is annoying.
It was off on a side tangent. That book really earned its stripes while it was an ongoing series that came out of Infinite Crisis. And the character is created by Jeff Johns, and it really earned its stripes in the DC universe. But regardless, yes, I saw him and I was like, dang it, I don't know anything about this character. Well, Tomasi can make anything work, so I'm fine with it.
All right. So I was asking you a question, hoping you would have an answer, and you just basically spun around like nothing, just spinning wheels.
Yeah. Tehillim says the 7 Soldiers of Victories with Zatanna. Yes, Shiloh is the 3rd Mr. Miracle. Yeah, that's the black guy who dies in Final Crisis.
Oh, you know what I want to say is shout out to Comic University was the YouTube channel that I watched where I got myself educated. Cool. Just in case he ever happens to stop by my show, which probably won't happen, but hey, give credit where credit's due.
So I have this thing where I look at comics a lot of times.
You look at comics? I look at comics once in a while too.
But like, okay, so a lot of times when I'm like unsure on whether I'm going to buy something or not.
Uh-huh.
I look at the last page
Oh, that's a bad idea.
And so uh, I was like, I wonder what the last page is of Detective. So I looked at the last page of Detective 997, and now I'm super pumped
Oh,
because now I'm like, ooh, how are we gonna get here?
oh, because you spoiled it. Awesome. All right.
Yeah, I won't tell you, but
Oh,
I mean, it's to me, it's not a big spoiler. Like, it was narrowed down to like 5 people in my head.
all right.
So yeah, so enjoy. You're, you'll
Fantastic.
probably
Tell
you'll
him, ass.
probably you'll probably get more off factor out of it than I will because it was there's only so many characters that could without creating a new one that the mystery could have been, so this character was definitely on my list of suspects in my so yeah. Anyway, enjoy.
Oh, funny. Okay.
Like remember I was telling you how I was like, oh, this is Ash's like first big Batman story arc
It's not my
where like
first big.
it's your first big Batman story arc.
No, it's not. I've read Batman stories before.
Not like you weren't you weren't there for like big moments.
Yeah, I totally like missed out on year one.
Yeah, that's not big. That's a 4-issue
That's not a
miniseries.
big moment. It's
No,
this. It's like the biggest moment probably
for
ever.
you, for you.
No, not for me. Okay, so Bats, this is the part where you missed out from the 80s and 90s. Okay, I was thinking about you the other day because Rob Liefeld made a post on Twitter about this, and he talked about Batman year one being like the most pivotal moment in like Batman, and people were like arguing with him and like posting back like other. I was like, no, and he's like, no, you don't understand. Before Miller wrote Batman year one, people were forgetting about Batman. It was not like people think that like Batman today, which is like the most popular comic in comics, is Batman. People have this tendency to think like, oh, it's kind of always been that way. No, Batman was on the ropes, and Miller came and revolutionized. Like people, it went from Batman just being like third rate, whatever. Batman's dopey. People's only view of Batman was from the TV, like Adam West. It was like whatever, and Bill Miller came on, and people were just like, what?
He turned normies into fans.
He turned, yeah, but he took comic fans that like were turned off of Batman, and everyone became a Batman fan. That's what I'm saying.
See, I
All
disagree
comic
with that.
fans became
I
Batman
know.
fans, and then normies became like I cannot understate the significance and the impact that he had, like in comicdom to someone like he wasn't there to actually like witness it, to see really like he was to Batman what like Star Wars was to blockbuster movies. Like it just people were just like, "Oh my god, my mind is blown what we can do in comics." Now today we look back in hindsight and a lot of people have learned from Miller. We've got a lot writings evolved, lots of things have changed. So people don't if you weren't there to see like what it was before and what it was after and live through the moment, you don't understand it.
Well, sure, but I know people who were there.
Like me.
Who you were reading freaking Marvel out of a 7-Eleven.
Yes, and I still do you understand? Like it even hit me. Batman Year 1 was it. It was the Watchmen. It was
It was not the Watchmen.
yes,
You're
it
high on
was.
drugs. You're high on drugs.
It was of its time. It was.
No, it wasn't. It was a 4-issue storyline that didn't even have its own miniseries. It was just in the regular issues. It's like issues what?
It's like
Four
400 and
four
something.
it's 404 to 409. Like it's like it's not
Bats, that's the way they used to do things. They didn't gimmick the fans with shitty miniseries all the time.
sure.
They
Sure.
just like, hey, we got a cool story, cool Batman story to tell. All right, cool. When's this current writer finished with his story? Okay, insert it next. That's what they did.
Sure.
Which they
But
should go back to doing that too. By
I
the way,
know people who were there at the time. They're like, yeah, your one was cool. DC fans, you're saying that people like you who are like, I like the X-Men and Iron Man.
no, you don't understand, Bats. It
No,
was
no,
like
let me
it
finish.
was their
Let
like
me
Olympic
finish.
torch. They were
Let me
like,
finish. Let me finish. Let me finish. DC fans, it was whatever. Yeah, Catwoman shouldn't be a weird prostitute. Why is she? Why did they change her skin color? DC fans weren't impressed with Batman Year One. They were not. DC fans at the time were far more impressed with the Justice Society of America, what was going on in Justice League, what was going on in Teen Titans. They were not impressed with Batman Year One.
you are wrong.
I am not wrong because I know DC fans who've
Dude,
been
I
DC
lived with
fans.
a DC fan. My stepfather was a DC fan, and
Yeah,
his
but
time goes back into the 70s.
sure.
I'm telling you, this is not the case.
I'm
People
telling
were
you,
blown
common
away.
consensus.
I was
Common
there.
consensus.
I was there.
You weren't there because
I wasn't there.
you weren't there. You weren't like engulfed in the DC universe. You've never been engulfed in the DC universe.
And what I'm telling you is you didn't need to be.
This is where you're missing my point. You're totally missing my point here. My point is that DC fans, people who collected the entire company, they were like, Batman Year One, it's okay, it's whatever. People of the DC fandom did not care. Everyone outside of the DC fandom were like, this is the greatest thing since Watchmen. It's not. It's a 4-issue story that is
That's your opinion.
mild.
That
It's
is
not my
not the
opinion.
opinion,
It's
dude.
a common consensus when it comes to hardcore DC fans.
Well, I live with a hardcore DC fan who is also an artist, and living in San Diego, going to Comic-Con every year, which is the biggest comic convention in the world. And yes.
No, it was the only comic convention in the world at the time.
No, it wasn't. But anyways, going, and back in those days when it was not at the San Diego Convention Center, and you could actually go and like talk to DC people and Marvel people, and it was actually way more intimate. And I'm telling you, Bats, you're wrong. Like, it not only did it revolutionize, like it stayed as a revolutionary thing for probably a decade. Like, it was just that big of an impact.
I don't think it revolutionized anything.
It was bigger than Watchmen.
It wasn't bigger
Yes,
than
it was. Watchmen is one of those things that's like this classic that everyone talks about, like, is like, oh, it's like the greatest. The way people kind of like talk about The Godfather, right? Like The Godfather, like in movies. I don't think you're a big movie buff, but in movies, in film buff circles, like it's like The Godfather's the greatest film. Yeah, that's right. But people lined up around blocks for weeks to see Star Wars. They didn't do that for Godfather. So you can sit in back with your smoking jacket and sip a bourbon and watch a Godfather and talk about how amazing it is, like people talk about Watchmen. But when it comes to impact, where people were excited and influencing the industry and bringing people into the industry and changing the industry, nothing did that like Miller's run on, and not even just Batman. It was before that was Daredevil. He did it to Daredevil first, and then he came to Batman and changed.
He didn't have a run on Batman. He had a 4-issue story.
Oh, God. What I'm telling
you, it's not a run. That is not a run.
Sorry,
that is a filler arc.
And it had that much of an impact. I'm telling you, it did. It just did.
It didn't.
Okay.
It did not. Just you have a nostalgia factor for it.
I was around. That's okay. You
have a nostalgia factor for it.
No,
that's fun.
It's not a nostalgia factor. I mean, I do love it. It's my favorite comic of all time. But
see, there it is. You think it's the greatest comic book ever made.
But I'm not basing this information that I'm telling you from that. I'm basing this information on what was happening. And believe me, it took me a while to read Batman Year One because Batman was dumb for a long time. And when I was told you should read Batman Year One, I was like, no, I'm gonna go back to reading my X-Men. Thank you very much.
Go read like Neil Adams Batman
Yeah.
and tell me that Frank Miller air quote revolutionized Batman. Frank Miller gets all the credit for making Batman cool.
No,
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 he
no,
does.
no, 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 no. See, that's where you're wrong. And this is the same people like argued with Liefeld about this. They were like, "Wow, Neil Adams has something to say about that." And it's like, look, no one is saying other creators didn't do cool Batman, but they did not make that impact. There's
Yes,
lots
they
of
did.
time. No, they trust me.
Neil Adams is far more beloved than Frank Miller when it comes to Batman. When you think of Batman, most people, the imagery that pops in their head is Neil Adams, not your crosshatchy Frank Miller Batman or your David Mazzucchelli Batman. Just not a fact. Not a fact. Neil Adams' style in general was the house style of DC Comics from the 70s all the way into the late 90s. That's how revolutionary is freaking Neil Adams is to Batman. No one thinks of Frank Miller's Dark Knight when they think Batman when it comes to mind. It's
Yes,
either
they do. And
you.
that's why when you look at like the movies, when you look at everything that's been done since with Batman, it's Frank Miller's influence all over it. Now, Neil Adams,
And they can't get Batman right because of it.
well, it's because everyone wants to try to do it different, and because there's no
No,
other
they
Frank Millers. They've been
they
having this problem
haven't
with
gotten
Daredevil ever
Batman right.
since as well. They can't get Daredevil right because Frank Miller revolutionized the character, and then no one can do it the same, and it's been this problem ever since. But let's just get off this. We're not going to argue about this all night. No one wants to hear us fight. Like old wives and um. So
Neil Adams is better than Frank Miller.
well,
End it.
whatever. That's so dumb. We're all over because we've been fighting over a stupid topic forever, and people are gonna tune out or watching the replay. I'm gonna cut this out.
Well, I mean, it's hard to like for you to live with the wrong opinion.
Well, it's hard for me to argue with someone who wasn't there, thinking they know more than the person who was there.
I do know more.
Well, you know more about all the rest. And I come to you as an expert. And then when I do, you go, oh, I don't actually know. So, weren't you going to talk about like other books?
Well, yeah, but then you went on a tangent about how Frank
I'm
Miller.
trying to change this. You keep. Sorry, folks. Really, we do plan things.
So I asked you about your last week in comics.
My last week in comics. God, I got so distracted because of this Twitter thing that it just made me just like lose focus and forget. Like it basically made me forget about last week in comics. What was going on with you? Maybe that'll spark my memory.
Last week in comics, what was I? There was some. I totally at a blank. I had something. I had something.
You were talking about Flash to me earlier.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll just talk about Flash. So Flash Annual #2 is. I'll be putting out a full review tomorrow, but just the first page, if you could pop that up on the screen for me, that'd be great.
All right, second. Go ahead.
And not that silly Heroes in Crisis nonsense. That's the second page. The first page. So Flash has been a series that I've just been really, really enjoying since I jumped back into it. It's always been a book that I jump in and I jump out of at any given point. Normally, it comes down to financial things where I'm like, I could drop everything except Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man books. So Flash kind of takes the cut a lot of times, even though it's like, to me, the perfect DC book. like all the time. It's always the perfect DC book. Whatever DC is at the time, Flash is the perfect version of it. Um, so Flash Annual number 2, we had a lot of changes in the DC universe lately, not just with Heroes in Crisis, but with Bendis writing pretty much 900 titles. And in one of the 900 titles he's writing Young Justice. And in Young Justice, it kind of has a moment with, not a moment, but Impulse is there, and he's being Impulse, and he's talking all fast. And if you could zoom that out, he, oh my gosh, this is Heather Ontos again.
It's on a delay. It's on right. You just gotta wait for it to catch up. It's on the first page or the cover.
So on the cover you could see up on the top of Wally West's statue, Impulse is there. So Impulse is a character from the 90s. I want to say he was created by Mark Waid. Let me check that.
I know Ethan Van Sciver is a big fan of Impulse.
Yeah, that's where he started his career.
Ah.
He
I'm not a fan of
he
legacy
came
characters.
into, yeah, I mean you hate everything cool.
No, I just don't like legacy characters. Just take the coolest character. That's it. We don't need inferior versions of it.
It's not inferior.
One of them is the best.
Well, they all have qualities that they.
Keep going.
So I'm trying to find out who created this character. I want to say it was Mark Waid. Well, we're gonna give credit to Mark Waid.
We'll let the audience tell us. Eric Breen is real knowledgeable. Eric, who created it? Let us know.
Anyway, so yeah, I'm a big fan of Impulse. I like the original Young Justice with Robin, Superboy, and Impulse. I really like that comic. It's really good. I highly recommend it. Go check it out. Go support your local comic shop in their back issues. So in the end of the Flash War, did you hear about this Flash War?
I think I've heard of it, but I'm not.
So Flash War was kind of the big storyline that happened in the Flash. I want to say a few months back. And then we had the moment where it was like 6 months ago, because in the last few pages of it, Wally was sent off to Sanctuary. And then after you got that downer, the next page, like the epilogue, the Speed Force breaks open and out comes Impulse. And I like almost threw the comic out of excitement. Because I was like, oh, finally! Because since Rebirth, I have been waiting for the actual Young Justice characters to come back.
But why do we need a Flash, another Flash to replace Flash, then a Kid Flash, then an Impulse? Like, at what point does it become too many?
It doesn't become too many because it's the DC universe.
So you're saying there could be more Flashes and it would be okay?
Yeah, there is. There's Wallace, and then there's the Flash of China. And there is
so if there's
Max.
like 50 Flashes, you're okay with that?
Yeah, because they share the Speed Force, and it's a part of the mythos. You know, you have the Flash, you have Wally West, you have Wallace West now. We have Impulse, we have Max Mercury, we have Johnny Quick, Jesse Quick, Jay Garrick Flash. That's 9. I'm counting them.
I just.
There's the Flash of China. That's 10.
It just waters it down.
It
to
doesn't
me.
water it down because it's kind of like how many Green Lanterns can there be?
Too many. Like um, the first thing I thought of when I saw Young Justice cover was a face palm. When I was like, oh my god, there's another Green Lantern. Like, okay, here's the thing. Like, superheroes, to me, this is my opinion. You don't have to share it. There's a specialness to them. When you make duplicates of those heroes, it loses that specialness. Now, some characters there's less of that impact than other characters. Like Green Lantern establishes this whole concept of the Green Lantern Corps, and it's like a space police force. So having more than one Green Lantern is not as impactful as like having more than one Superman, right? Like Superman is one of those characters that really is like sensitive to that, in my opinion. Where it's like, oh, you have another Superman. Oh god, that's like the whole last son of Krypton is he's like the only one. That's what's like special. And if you make multiples, then it's like, ugh. Obviously,
Well, he
Flash
is
has
the
his
last
own. I know that.
son.
Is he the last son? Because
He
Jor-El's
was
running
the
around, and
no. He is
Connor's running
the
around, and John's running around. So
yeah. Well,
there's
you're missing what it's called. The last son of Krypton. He is the last born person of Krypton. That doesn't mean like Zod and his whole squad can't come back to fight the last born son of Krypton.
okay. Yes, there's that way of looking at it, which is valid, but it also conveys a meaning of a specialness that he's the you know. But if you have a bunch of Supermen running around, it's not interesting. Which is one of my problems with the Man of Steel, the movie, when they had like 50 Zod minions. I was just like, Jesus, this is stupid. Um.
It
Anyways,
was
like I
the
said,
Phantom
this is
Zone.
my opinion. You don't have to have it, and maybe other people will share it, and maybe they'll side with you. I don't know. I just I think the Flash is neat. Like he's a special character. He can do things that no one else can do. Except no, there's 8 other people that can do what he can do, and there's probably going to be more. And it's just like to me, it loses some of that specialness. Like I don't read superheroes just for the character. Like that is a good quality, but I can just read regular fiction drama for a character. Superheroes are beyond who they are as a person to me. And while the character's not ruined, it's not completely invalidated, to me it waters it down. And that's just my opinion.
We'll see. I feel like it's a. I've said this number of times. DC is not Marvel, and Marvel characters work only once. Miles Morales really suffers from this, right? Because he's not Spider Man, but you have Barry Allen and you have Wally West, and collectively, they're both the Flash.
Okay,
To
okay, so explain this to me because I'm genuinely curious. Because I'm not seeing your point and I want to. Um, tell me why. Try to elaborate on why. Because I'm not seeing the difference. Why is Miles and Spider like Peter Parker? Why why they don't work, but in DC it does work?
because DC's better.
Come on, no, that's
um, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for Marvel because they were going from the get. These characters are they're so special. They're only Spider-Man can be the amazing Spider-Man. Stan really like shoved it in your face that Marvel only has these type of characters,
okay.
right? So when you essentially like have a clone of Spider-Man, you're like, eh, do I Ben Riley? Oh, here's the oh, there's another one. There's another Spider-Man. Oh, there's a superior. It really doesn't work over at Marvel, where you could have a Oliver Queen Green Arrow book, and then you could have a Connor Kent or excuse me, Connor Hawk Green Arrow book. And sure, one may sell better than the other, but they both equally have strong followings because there's the DC fans like myself who like to go forwards and backwards all the time. But then there's also fans like you where you come in and you're like, okay, Rebirth is where I'm starting, and you're kind of overwhelmed with the amount of vast history where Marvel's always been on this sliding timeline. It's like Captain America's always been unfrozen for 15 years, right? At this point. So he's always on the sliding timeline where we use the Flash and the Speedsters to reboot our universe all the time at DC. Where, the Flash does something heroic with his speed powers, which screws up the timeline and starts everything over again. And it works at DC because you're like, you can kill Barry Allen in the Crisis on Infinite Earths and then have Wally be the Flash for 25 years. And so now you built two fan bases of, Barry from back in the day and the modern Flash. And then people can come in and be like, oh, Barry's the Flash again. And like DC fans are more intrigued because they enjoy the history of the DC universe as a whole. So you can have multiple Flashes. Like the way I came into DC Comics was I found out there was multiple Robins. And I was like, wait, there's more than one? They're like, yeah, there's a Tim Drake's Robin. I was like, who the hell is Tim Drake? I thought Dick Grayson was Robin. I was like, he's the.
But I want to point out something about this real quick. There really isn't more than one Robin.
Yes, there is.
No, not really. There's one at a time. One gets replaced. At any given time, there's just one.
Well, not right now. There's two.
Oh, I guess right now there's fucking Young Justice. Sorry.
And there was also Red Robin, so Robin was in the title of his name.
I guess. But
so since 2011, we've had multiple Robins at the same time. And there's also the We Are Robin storyline that was really cool because it was the 75th anniversary of Robin, so they did this whole big storyline with Gotham street kids dressing up in red and green and forming teams and fighting gangsters on the street without Batman's permission. Good storyline.
Okay. Yeah, so
it just
I listen to what you say. And I hear you, but I still it doesn't click for me. Like what you're saying. Like I go, okay, well, when you describe it didn't work for Marvel, I go, yep, I'm right with you. I do think these are special. You're echoing exactly kind of what I'm saying, and then you go over to DC, and then you explain how it works in DC, and I'm not transitioning. To me, it still seems that DC's playing by the same rules. Now, hold on, let me finish. You did make a couple of points that I resonated a little bit with, like when Barry Allen died. Right, so Barry Allen was dead when I got into comics. He died in Crisis Infinite Earths. We talked about this before about how huge of an impact Barry Allen dying was. So Wally West was a Flash throughout my comics life. Right now, I wasn't a DC guy, but I paid attention from the sidelines. That's who I always knew, and I just knew it was Barry. The only thing I knew about Barry Allen was that TV show in the late 80s or whatever they had. I was like, oh, why is his name Barry Allen? I thought, okay, well, that was the original Flash. Oh, yeah, that's right, he died. So when they brought him back, I was like, why are you bringing him back? Wally West has been the Flash. Now, it was okay for me because it was passing the torch. It's you had a Flash, he died. Now you've got this other guy filling in those shoes. My problem isn't necessarily the continuing on of a character being I'm the new guy. My problem is hey, I'm joining you and I'm taking the same name. One thing I do have to credit Impulse is that he calls himself Impulse. Like, he's not just, hey, I'm also Flash. I hate about Miles Morales Spider-Man. It's like, I'm Spider-Man. Really? So you're a kid and you grow up and you idolize Spider-Man, and then you get coincidentally bitten by a radioactive spider, and then you turn into a different version of Spider-Man. At first, when you're in your own ultimate world and there is no other Spider-Man, it makes sense to be like, well, I'm going to don that name. And then you get crossed over and you're like, wait a second, I find myself in the same universe as Peter Parker. I'm going to still call myself him. Like, it just seems, I hate that. Oh, I hate that so much. Like, it's like, okay, you have the same power. Please assume your own identity. Please, like, stop. Like, don't be, I'm going to be this guy too. Oh, I hate that. I can't, oh, when I see West Coast Avengers, I'm Hawkeye. So am I. I'm the other Hawkeye. Oh, only a fucking narcissistic sociopath would do this. Sorry, go ahead.
DC has, do you know a guy named by the name of Julie Schwartz?
No.
So Julie Schwartz was kind of the big dog back in, he created the Silver Age. Right? So he became like the main writer, the lead editor back in the late 50s. And, you know, sales were plummeting, you know, as after the war. And they were like, oh, we gotta spark this superhero genre back up again. And he's like, hey, so why don't we like redo the Flash, but like give him a cooler costume and a more science fiction based origin. And so they introduced the Flash, Barry Allen Flash, and immediately after introducing him, they did the Flash of Two Worlds. I'm sure you've seen that cover, right?
I might have. I'm not recalling it by name.
Where there's a construction worker and he's like an I-beam's about to fall on him. And you see Jay Garrick and Barry Allen running to the scene to stop the I-beam falling on the construction worker.
Yep, I see it. I looked it up on Google.
Right. They introduced that immediately with, like, that's, you know, essentially sparked the multiverse. And also sparked the idea that we can have multiple characters of the same name with the same power that are equally as good as each other. They committed to their own bit back then.
And I'm okay with the multiverse. I guess for me, it's when you put a spotlight. You know, like, DC is kind of weird for me in the sense that it's like they have like 52 different Earths, right? So
Infinite Earths.
Well, I thought they got rid of that. I thought there's down.
They get rid of it and then bring it back and get rid of it. And
my understanding is that the current continuity, there's only 52, and they have only really explained like less than a dozen of them. But be that as it may, I'm okay. Well, sort of okay. I think it's kind of dumb, but I'm okay with, like, okay, you're on Earth Zero is what we audience focus on. Those are our heroes. But there's also Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3, right? And these, like, different versions of, like, it's like the same heroes, but the world's slightly different. It's like, why bother doing that? You're in my mind, like, I'm okay if you, yes, it has can create some interesting storylines, you know, like Star Trek's got its mirror universe, and it's like, okay, that made an interesting storyline, but it also is one of those things, like, now that you've introduced it and you made it this thing and you just expound on it, and now it just gets out of control. And like, back when there were infinite Earths, it's like, oh, there's infinite Superman, like, now there's infinite Batman, and there's infinite, it's like, well, then why are these characters special? Like, just, you know, like in the current DC continuity, Superman that's running around, Clark Kent, is not even Superman from this continuity, nor is he Superman from the last continuity. He's a Superman from Flashpoint that avoided Flashpoint, went into the New 52 and hid, then the new Superman, the new 52 Superman dies, and so Superman that's hiding, who's going under Clark Smith and living on the farm with Lois Smith, like, okay, they're just in hiding. They decide, oh, I got to pick up the mantle, which that was actually a cool storyline. Credit where credit's due. Like, I was like, oh, this is neat. This Death of Superman was way better than the original Death of Superman storyline, and yet they gave no. It was like a real small thing. I liked that character, but it just creates this weirdness of like all these continuities floating around, and it's like, well, it could just be any Superman. We could just kill Superman all the time, and then we'll go to Earth 52 and grab that Superman. And now he's running around. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like there's
I don't see it because I'm like, I love all this stuff. I just kind of, from my perspective, like you.
Maybe it's because I grew up under Stan Lee. Maybe it's that influence you're talking about, that I like my heroes are special. And
it's kind of like, this is how I look at it. You go to the produce section in the grocery store, and you're like, oh man, there's Granny Smith, there's Red Delicious, there's Fuji's, there's Honey Crisp. Why isn't there just one kind of apple? Why do I have to choose from all these different apples?
I don't think your analogy is very correct though. Because I look at Flash as like a Honey Crisp, and then like, Batman is a green sour apple, or Granny Smith, and like Superman is a Macintosh. Like, I look at each hero as a different variety of those apples. I don't
I look at the whole produce section as like, you're just focusing all it on apples. I'm just saying there's room for everything.
Well, there is room for everything. I'm just saying that there's a cause and an effect, right? So yeah, you have room for this, but there's an effect that by taking advantage. So what I was trying to say before about the multiverse was like, I'm okay with it is because they kind of shuffle it off to the side. It's not in your face. They're not constantly flashing back to these different worlds. So I know that there's like an Earth 1 and an Earth 2 with, but they really don't have anything to do with what we're watching when we're reading in our books. So they're not really in my face. So I'm like, I can tolerate that. But when it's like there and you're like, oh, look, it's a bunch of the same character. Like, why do I need 6 Green Lanterns? Like, I don't. Like, just give me the good Green Lantern and let me read those stories. I have first of all, limited number of resources, right? Like, I don't want there to be 52 amazing DC titles, to be quite honest. I mean, I kind of do because I want DC to succeed. I like DC, but if there were 52 amazing, like, imagine if every DC title was as good as Detective Comics. That would be like, oh, that'd be awesome, right? But like, I can't afford to buy them all. So I'm really only caring about the best books, and the ones I can't read don't necessarily need to exist for me. So I'm only interested necessarily in like maybe the best Flash. So I don't need those other Flashes. And having their existence around kind of diminishes to me. And it also makes them, to kind of put salt in a wound, it makes them expendable. I don't know if you saw what I had on the screen, Bats, but I got a nice happy picture for you.
Yeah.
And even I'm pissed. And even I'm pissed at this. And I'm just got the opinion I described to you.
So there's a moment in DC continuity. I mean, I don't know if it's in continuity anymore, but there was Kevin Smith wrote Green Arrow, right? He kind of made Green Arrow popular. And there's this. So you know who the character Connor Hawk is?
Nope.
So Connor Hawk was a Chuck Dixon creation. He's essentially a kid who was raised by Buddhists, and he was an out of wedlock kid by Oliver Queen. And so he picks up his dad's mantle after Oliver died. And so when Green Arrow comes back, Connor goes, hey, so now as you're back in your Green Arrow, uh, who am I? And Ollie puts his arm on his kid's shoulder, and he's like, "You're Green Arrow." He's like, "But there can't be two Green Arrows." He's like, "Sure there can. Why can't there be two Green Arrows? You're my son." And like that's a really touching moment, like with those two characters. And so like a lot of like if you if when you read Flash Annual number 2, you'll kind of see like why the legacy characters are important to the DC universe. Yes, they are expendable for obviously storyline and story, plot devices, but it just builds to it. I feel like, that this is where the Marvel fans and the DC fans will always disagree because they grew up under the idea that their characters are perfect and special, and they're special in their own little ways, where DC has the idea that like, yeah, we have cool characters, but we can have 10 cool characters at the same time. We can have a story with all the speedsters, and we'll have 10 guys running with lightning bolts behind them, and it'll be awesome. Where at Marvel be like, there can only be one guy who swings on webs. Only one guy can swing on webs. We're over at DC, we're like, everyone can run with lightning bolts. Like,
That to me, that makes them less special, and I don't see a reason why you can't create cool characters, those same personalities and those same people, and just give them different power sets. I think it makes it more interesting to me and more of a unique identity. And like I said, it's a super pet peeve of mine. The the characters that like take the same name, like Robin, doesn't bother me so much because it's sort of like, okay, the last Robin graduated, you're now the new Robin, okay. But it's the simultaneous. Hey, we're both Hawkeye. Hawkeye's the like Miles Morales and Peter Parker are really bad, but the Hawkeye one is I want Clint Barton to punch Kate Bishop in the face every time. Like I would buy that book if I could watch Barton punch her in the face. What a stupid bitch that she runs around with his name. Like, ugh. And it's like, look at me. I'm the best archer in the world because I picked up a bow and girl power. Woohoo!
and he's got his kids. Okay, you remember when Wally had was having those memories in Heroes in Crisis with his kids? Well, his kids have speedster powers. Does that make them less special? So if you had a a Flash at the time, an Impulse, a Jay, and Irie, so you have four speedster, a Max Mercury, a Jesse Quick, and a Johnny Quick. So now you have eight speedsters. Does that make them less special? Mm-hmm. Hmm. Because more is better than one. Do you just buy one comic every week? I mean, in some cultures, are they? It is a Grant Morrison story that is even crazy for me. I have, yeah. I've been commenting on his videos. Hey, man, he like you like what you like. Like you like Marvel. I like DC. I like Neil Adams. You like Frank Miller. It is what it is. Uh, it's not that you don't dislike DC, but you haven't fully the same with me with Marvel. I haven't for the last 25 years of collecting comics, I still haven't found the love and appreciation that is Marvel Comics. And mhm. They're saying in the chat they can't hear you. Press F if you could hear Ash. So do you have a?
Testing. There we go. I think it's working now. Boy, the stream is nothing but technical difficulties.
About F for failure. Dang. Yep, they can hear you.
All right, so Comics Quirks. All these things I've said have been wasted, like now because they didn't hear. Comics Quirks, I was saying before, we were not ignoring you. Obviously, as you just witnessed, I had technical difficulties. It's been going on for probably 10 minutes, it seems like. That's going to be great for the playback. And Sergeant Bats has found the code of silence. Nice. I was talking about you, like, watching your videos.
Let you go. Let you go. So I hear you.
Yeah, you hear me because we're on Hangouts, but the OBS software froze on my mic, so it wasn't. I had to like reset the audio, and I didn't realize I wasn't being heard. I just need to keep the screen up because it has like a little meter that shows me the audio, and I like switch off it.
So moving along as we, man, this train is just
chugging. Thank you guys for bearing with this, stellar production value here as we like F up. I'm gonna move this straight over to our number one dealio. Bats.
What's the dealio?
You tell me.
Would it be Robert Venditti Exo Manowar?
Yes, it is the theme of our show today, episode 3. It's on the cover. Transitioned over. Hopefully the delay has it up here soon. I don't know why it takes so long. I'm going to have to mess with I'm going to have to learn how to stream better. So we had a new thing for those of you that didn't participate last week or whatever. Bats is hard to hear now. Dun, dun, dun. Well, Bats is cranked up as high as I can put him, so I'll turn myself down a little bit. Maybe you guys can just raise your master volume. We did a change to our comic book club idea. It was like messing up where we were just like we had to choose a book and all this different things. So the current thing now is we have a little rule. We're doing a Comixology comic club where anyone of you guys can participate. We encourage all you guys to, so we can talk about it. We're going to alternate picking books. Each of us are going to pick a book. I picked a book this week, and it was Exo Manowar by the Sword, which is the first story arc of Exo Manowar when Valiant came back in 2011. They purchased themselves back from Acclaim, and they rebooted their whole line. And Exo Manowar, I believe, was the first book that they did. I could be wrong. But Robert Venditti, who I've recently become a big fan of, did this thing. And I've been reading a little bit. I still got a lot to go, but the new Exo series that's being done by Matt Kint, and I'm in love with the series. The art is awesome, even better than this one we're talking about. And the writing is fantastic, and I'm just like, I'm in love. And several people in the past, as I've talked about it, I was like, oh yeah, well, did you read the Venditti run before then? And I was like, no, I haven't read that. Like, oh, you got to read that. And I was like, oh well, maybe I'll eventually get around to it, And now that I like finally caught up on Hawkman and I'm reading, other Venditti stuff, I'm like, man, I really should check out that one. And so, anyways, we're picking stuff, and that's why I picked it. The rules are 200 pages or less. Has to be on Comixology Unlimited so that you can get it for free if you have the membership. This one happened to be both on Unlimited and on sale, so you can get it for $4.99. Or you could just get Unlimited if you have it and not be too big of an investment. We didn't want to like pick 500-page massive omnibuses that would just soak up your whole week to read. Something that was digestible, if you will. So I picked the first one. Bats will be picking this coming up week's one that we both have to read. and you guys are optional to read. Hopefully, you'll do so, and we can all chat about it. But
Tell them about the button.
the button?
Yeah, the button you don't want to push. The nuclear button.
Oh man, I know we were talking about this. I'm drawing a blank.
Okay,
I'm
so
sorry.
if in war, if you were
Oh,
to
I know. Go ahead. Yeah, you just tell it.
launch a nuclear bomb, the rest of the world will start launching their nuclear bombs, and it'll just be all out war. And so I had joked about, because I was looking on Comixology, and I was like, oh, I should make you read Gem and the Holograms. And Ash had said, oh, well, if that's the case, then I'll make you read this. And then it was just like a back and forth, like the worst things that we could possibly think to make each other read.
Yeah, and that's not. It would be really bad because we would just escalate it, but it would also be bad for you guys because you'd like you don't want to come here and have to be like you're telling us to read, you know, Max Visaggio books. Like what are you doing? So yeah, I was like, this is just try to avoid that. So this week's book, I'm pulling it up here, was By the Sword. And what did you think of it?
I have mixed feelings about it, to be honest.
Oh, didn't expect
Um,
that.
I did like it, um, but I had read half of the original Exo Man of War graphic novel, and it didn't have the charm of the 80s Exo. However, it did have a more epic cinematic vibe to it. Like the the charm that the original EXO was is that he wasn't a soldier during the Roman Empire wars. He was more of like a caveman. And so they kind of I didn't really care that they jumped him up further in time to make him more like warrior-esque. But I did really like it. I really did. But I just kind of was comparing it to something I already had read. And so what I really liked of the old EXO was he was always like, "This is the good skin." He like kind of talked like a very like cavemanish with a Cro-Magnon, and he always referred to the armor as the good skin, and it kind of lost that its charm there for me, where I was like, oh, he they kind of said it. He's like, this is good armor, and then he fought, but I was like, it just like it 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 just didn't. I was and because it was Robert Venditti, I was expecting just a little bit more out of it. Where this one was a little kind of I it's a little basic. It felt like a movie I would have enjoyed.
Well, there's a couple things I agree with you regarding this. One is the movie comments for sure. That's the
It felt
whole.
very cinematic. It was very fast paced and easy to read.
Yes, this book is one of the most cinematic books I've read in quite a while. And the whole time I'm reading it I was like, they need to make this into a movie. Like
Yeah, that's what I was.
page by page. Like this will be phenomenal because you get, as you can see here on the screen, I got the book up. I hate with this lag. It's like, geez, why does it take so long? On the screen, I've got the book, and it starts off in 402 AD in northern Italy with the Visigoths fighting the Romans. So it's got, you just imagine the movie Gladiator, right? And just getting those scenes and having that portrayed, and you've got this badass Auric character who is, to me, feels like a very Conan-esque character.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I read it Eric.
Okay, Auric. It's ARIC, I guess. Whatever.
Yeah, I just read it as Eric for some reason.
Whatever. Sure. Okay. That's that's not important.
Thanos, right?
Sure. Sure. Um. Well, so for me, the character is very.
says he's not a big Valiant fan. Oh, he says
Oh,
I'm
he's
not
not a big fan of Faith at Valiant. Well, you're not alone. There's very few fans of Faith. That's comic sells like 3,000 units. It's garbage. I can't say it's garbage. I haven't read it. The concept to me is garbage. Just promoting obesity in superheroes. Just nothing against people that are obese. It's the idea. Superheroes should be what you strive to be, right? This idea in modern culture that it's like, why do you have women looking with big boobs and perfect bodies, and it's like, no, these are god creatures. Like, these are modern myth, right? The Romans and the Greeks didn't like carve statues of their gods all fat and stuff. They carved them like ideal human beings. Comics are the Greek mythos of the modern era, right? It's just, these are beings that we would want to be. They're super beings. They're not supposed to be things that that you don't want to be. So this Auric character to me, which I came into, my first experience of X-O Manowar is the second volume, which is the Matt Kint series. And so I kind of came into this story already. He's in the future and he's fighting alien races, and that's where it's at. And I've kind of paused that because we chose this book. So I came in here and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that this was an origin story, because I didn't realize, I was like, they did that origin back in the 90s when Valiant came around. And I was like, oh, this is really freaking cool. And I love that the character that I've been reading, I can see his origin now. And you're kind of the opposite of me. Like, you read Valiant back in the day, or maybe you didn't read it back in the day, but you got those books. And so your first experience is a different arc than my first experience. And so you're kind of reading it going, oh, this is not my arc. And I'm reading it going, oh, this is where my arc comes from. So I just love like how you have this gladiator story, and they're going to go like raid these Romans and like get back their prisoners. And then it's actually aliens, and they don't realize because they're all dressed in armor and stuff. And they fight these aliens and they end up losing naturally, and they get captured and taken away on the spaceship. And then there's a really cool scene that's like really innocuous at first, and God, I hate this lag. Where there's a scene where like these aliens, they come into this camp and there's like this little baby, and they have like this little injector, and they like inject the baby, and then you see what they're doing is they have this alien baby, and then they like take blood or something from the human baby, and then they inject the alien baby, and then the alien baby morphs into the human baby. Like, they swap the babies out.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and you're just like, what's going on there? And it's like 2 pages. And great. And then they go back, and then the Auric and his little band of Visigoths or whatever, they get captured, and then the spaceships like launch into space, and you're like, whoa, what the F? And you're like, well, I don't even understand what that baby scene was. And you're just like, okay, whatever. These are aliens, and you kind of get to see aliens in the eyes of primitive society. I mean, it's not caveman primitive, but it's like 400, it's the Roman times. And they just think that they're beasts. They don't necessarily equate like space travel and stuff. They don't necessarily know everything that they're seeing. But Auric is this badass, and he kind of reminds me a little bit of like Maximus as well in Gladiator, and the fact that he has this leadership. Like these guys are just like, we're with you, we'll fight with you.
And he's also trying to get back to his woman.
Oh, and he's trying to get back to his woman. Good point. Good call. Yeah. And I
on,
love.
On the note of it being really cinematic, I couldn't help but not think the entire time. I was like, Zack Snyder needs to direct this movie.
Oh, for sure. I would.
If you were to look at like 300.
Oh yeah.
And then also Man of Steel.
I would. You know what? Yeah, I 100% agree. But I would also, if Ridley Scott directed this.
Yeah, because you got Alien and you got Gladiator. So one of those two guys needs to direct this movie.
So it's really interesting, this mythos that they set up, so that these aliens like have this little ball. It looks like that's on the screen now. So these aliens, like, they worship this ball. It's the armor of Shanhara. It's not Shannara. Shanhara. Whatever. Shanhara. There we go. So they worship this armor, and this whole thing is they're trying to like raise these like warriors to be worthy of this thing, and to see if it'll open and like accept. And it's been like millennia since it
also has a vibe of Sword in the Stone.
Sure, yeah, Arthurian mythos there, where it's like only one person's worthy. So you can see here on the scene that I got. Oh, if the chat ever catches, man, why is this like this?
Yeah, Comics Court. The art is Kari Nord, I believe.
Carrie Nord. Yeah, same guy that did the art on The Unexpected, New Age of Heroes.
Oh, cool.
I'm not actually a super fan of Carrie Nord.
I thought the pencils looked better than the colors. The colored pages.
Yeah, I find that's often the case. I think Carrie Nord's like a competent artist, and I do like his art in this book better than I liked him in The Unexpected. But it's like competent. For me, I'm a little bit picky as well, because if you look at the art from the new Exo Manowar, you're just like, oh, jeez. So these aliens, they have this ball, they worship it, and you can see like they're prepping this warrior he's the one that captured all these guys, and it's like, oh yeah, they're gonna see if he's worthy. And the armor opens up, and he's like, yes, and then he puts armor on and stuff, and lo and behold, it kills him. And they're like, oh man, another one's not worthy. And then they go back, and the thing goes back into a ball. And it's like been a millennia since it's selected anyone. And you can kind of see where the story is going. It's a little spoiler because it's called Exo Man of War. Like, you're like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. If this would have been even... Yep, it's going. Okay. So yeah, you can see where Bats was talking about if it ever catches up with his woman, he spends time with his woman, and he's remembering. And this one of the things I really liked about this book, Bats, was it was very masculine.
Like, oh yeah, it was very, very high tea book.
Very masculine. Unapologetic. Like, it's just, it's not masculine in a sense that it's putting down women in any way, but this is very much like a book for guys. And there's a part here where Auric rises up against his slave masters, and they chop off his hand, which I didn't know how he lost his hand. Now I do.
Which is kind of cool, because I looked at a recent Exo book, and I was like, this cover's badass. And his hand was like separated from the armor. And I was like, does he have did he lose his hand in the new book? Oh, it looks like he lost it at one point. because it like the image was like the armor coming together.
Mm-hmm.
The hand was separated from the wrist,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, he must have lost his hand, and when he gets in the suit, he gets a hand
Right. The suit.
and
The suit turns into a hand. Yeah. It's
gives him a hand, yeah, and it shows it in the book, and I was like, oh, cool.
so there's a whole cool bit about Arik having to like bring these slaves on the ship, like to resist and fight. And it's very much, a little bit. I don't want to say cliche, but kind of cliche. Where he's just like, think of your women at home and your families and all this stuff. And one of the cool things about this book too is like they're in space for years. This isn't like, hey, we went in space and then like 2 days later we rebelled. There are these prisoners and they show them getting beat down and then working in this biodome thing, whatever. Like planning these. I don't even know what they're doing.
What I would notice too, as just kind of as you're going through these pages, a reason this book feels so cinematic is because there's a lot of widescreen shots. Like if you look at the screen right now, it's all widescreen images.
Yeah, I mean, for
Well,
sure. I think that Carrie Nord is a competent illustrator, and I think that um, Robert Venditti just understands how to plot a story cinematically like this.
and it's kind of like when you look at it from here, like this book was 2011, and now we're in 2019. It's almost like he's he worked his way up the ranks of the time traveling warrior, space traveler slash gladiator character from Valiant to DC.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the Exo and Hawkman have a lot of similar traits. Oh, well, we're looking at Heather Ontos now.
Or are we? Shit. I'm trying to spot. Sorry, I forget that this is on the same tabs. I'm trying to see like YouTube feed because the lag is really. I'm running my iPad simultaneously to kind of like see what the viewers see, um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like taking forever to catch up to wherever I post. So I'm just not going to rely on that. I guess you guys will understand whatever I'm describing will come up like 15 seconds later apparently. So the whole bit is like eventually he gets this rebellion going on the ship, and they they capture some or kill some guards, take their weapons, and then they storm this rebellion, and they get to the room where the armor's at. And they don't necessarily know anything about the armor. They just know it's this room. And of course, the armor activates, and it chooses Arik.
Real
Um,
quick, Quirks is saying the art is badass. Why do Marvel and some DC stuff get rid of good artists and put people like Ed McGuinness on Avengers and then Del Mundo on Thor? But they have art like this at a Valiant book.
well, that's good. Well, I can answer for Marvel. It's because they are losing money.
So yeah, they
So
can't afford talent to stay on a book.
so yeah. Whenever you hear like the non-comics gate people like try to defend like, oh, the industry is doing fine. No, it's not. That's a reason why they hire all these assistant editors, and they got rid of all their editors because they're paying them peanuts. They got rid of all their artists so they could hire these Tumblr artists that work for peanuts. They don't pay writers anymore. Like the writers that do they've got to write like 6 books just to make a paycheck. That's why Donny Cates is writing so much stuff, because he probably negotiated that to get money, because honestly Marvel can't afford him, and that's probably why Bendis left. And um, what's happening is Marvel's losing money, like tons of money, and then but what they're doing is they're cutting costs to keep profits stable, and that's why. Now DC, on the other hand, isn't doing it so much. this art you're seeing here is Carrie Nord in 2017. Carrie Nord, just like I said, he did the art on The Unexpected. So this artist is working for DC. DC's got some fantastic artists. In fact, some of the best artists in the business are all working at DC. There's a few indies that have some good artists, but usually those books are creator owned, and obviously when you get all the revenue, it benefits you, right? And that's why Ethan's gone solo. Here's some of those pencils that you're talking about.
Those look great.
So Exo, gets the armor, and it chooses him, and they're just like, what? Oh my god, it's chosen a human. How? And there's 2 castes in the society. There's like the priest caste, and then there's like the warrior. And so they're like start arguing, and the warrior's like, we gotta stop this thing, and the priests are like, it's blasphemy, it's chosen, we gotta figure out what's going on. And they're like, whatever, we're not gonna listen to you. We gotta protect my job's to protect the people, not to listen to your pathetic, babbling. So while they're arguing, Exo is using his armor to slay everyone and everything, and eventually he fights the big commander guy that ended up capturing him in the first place.
I love that scene. That scene was awesome.
And
like, if you won't fight me man on man, we'll fight armor on armor.
Yeah.
And he like rips him out of there. And then you see here on this page on the screen on YouTube right now, he hits him with just like, he cowards out and like throws a detonator bomb on him, like a little sticky bomb, and it just like blasts him off to hell. I thought that was awesome. Because then he's coming back
for sure. And you can see on the second page that not only does he blast him to hell, but he's like, I don't give a shit. I'll take out my ship. And you can see like massive explosion on the ship, which cripples it just to try to kill Exo. And here's another scene when it catches up, where he's having memories, of his wife, and she's like, return to me as soon as you can, my husband. Return. He's like floating in space, unconscious. And he's like, Rome, Rome, Rome. And he's like all pissed. And then just cut back into the ship, and the aliens arguing on what to fire, and they're going to like put all the weapons of their warship on him. And then Exo blinks out of existence, and they're like, what the fuck? And the next thing is we're in modern day Earth. And Exo comes crashing down to the Colosseum and wakes up. And he thinks he's like, I'm in Rome. Holy shit. I've returned. But he doesn't.
What I really, really, really liked about this scene is that he like, because when you think of Rome like that, like the first thing that comes to mind is the Colosseum.
Right.
Right. And so it's so like a comic trope to just like crash land into their major monument. Like,
right. That's all. It's a movie trope too. Like, yeah,
it's
always
a movie trope, right? Like, if you're gonna show Paris, you're not gonna just show like a freaking lake with a gondola. You're gonna show the Eiffel Tower. Like New York City, you're not gonna show like Joe's Pizza Shop. You're gonna show the freaking the Statue of Liberty, and then Joe's Pizza Shop. Like. And so I just really like that, because it's like, of all the places to crash in Rome, he like crash lands in the Colosseum, and he's a gladiator. Like, okay, I see what you did there. That was dope.
So he's surrounded by modern police, and they're trying to tell him like, put your weapon, your hands up, whatever. And he thinks he's back in his time. He doesn't understand. And he puts on his helmet, and he's looking for the general. He's going to slay him, the Roman general that took his people, whatever. He doesn't, like I said, doesn't realize he's dead. And then the guards the police open fire, and you're not seeing this yet, but just Exodus raises his fists and just like annihilates him. And there's like a cool shot where he just takes off into the air, and he's like hovering above the city. And then all of a sudden a missile comes crashing into him, and then he gets in a fight with these 2 jet fighters in the skies. And this, again, you were talking about like a cinematic. Like, the whole time I'm reading this, I'm like, if this was a movie, like all these are like great set pieces, you
Mm-hmm.
know, fight like how badass would it be like watch him flying around fighting these jet fighters. And he finally like rips one dude out of the cockpit and he's interrogating him. He's like, "Where's still General Stilicho? Where's the Emperor Minorius? I will have my wife returned to me, or all of Rome will burn." What? 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 What do you mean? Italy doesn't have an emperor. And then he like Exo's eyes go wide, and he's like, "You lie." But he kind of realizes at that moment it's the truth. And then all of a sudden he gets like head spasm, or and he's like, "Ah," and he's like flying in air and drops the pilot. The pilot's like, "No," and he gets like this sort of like Matrix, rapid knowledge thing where he's just the armor's flooding him with information of like history, and he's just like, "Oh my god," and he's like, "I've been gone for 16 centuries." Meanwhile, the pilot's like still falling to his death, and now Arik, being not a bad guy, being a character that we're gonna see be a hero. Of course, he saves the guy. He's not his enemy. Um, and that's kind of the end of the origin of Arik. But at this point, the story transitions into this character Alexander, who gets a phone call, and he's this rich playboy guy, and he's got these two girls in bed and stuff, and he gets this phone call, and you're not sure what it's all about, but it's important because he's like sends everyone home. He's like, you gotta go, and they're like, "But we're ready for you," and he's like, "Get the fuck out." No, he doesn't say it like that, but so that lets you know, like, okay, this dude's got something important going on, and you're like wondering, and he goes into this little mind meld thing with these other people, and you're like, what is this? And then you're like, oh shit, it dawns on you. These are the grown up, like the descendants of these babies that were implanted at the beginning of the book. And they're the aliens, but they look like humans, so they're among us. You're like, oh my god, that is so badass. What did you think about this part?
Yeah. It dawned on me and was like, oh. At first, I was like, are they gonna call him Colin? At first, I was like, oh, here's Ninjak, because I know the second book is called Enter Ninjak. So when I saw like this playboy with a bunch of girls, and he kicks everyone out and he goes to his computer, I'm like, oh, here's Ninjak. And then I was like, wait, this isn't Ninjak. This is not Colin. Oh, like I was like, oh, here we go. And I didn't. I saw the preview. I got like one page, and I was like, no. I'm just gonna read it. It's like I don't need to see the preview.
Oh, okay. So I did read the preview, um, and it's. I guess I won't spoil it for you, but it goes in basically these aliens they hire Ninjak to kill Arik and get the armor back, and
Okay, yeah.
it's not very long or anything. But it's enough to tease you and be like, oh shit, this Ninjak guy is a badass. And then of course you've got the page where it shows the armor and Ninjak's sword and stuff. And I don't think I presented this very well, like because of my technical difficulties in this awesome stream that we do. But it's this book was fantastic for me. Um, I was shocked. I walked in and I think the current XO is one of the best books in comics right now. And I was reading this and I was like, holy shit, this is better.
You
Venditti's story is just tighter and it feels like contained. Like this was a solid origin story and there's like major things happening. Where Matt Kint's story is very fun, but it feels just like an episode of Conan. Like they write Arik pretty much very similar, but in the current run, it's like Arik is like Conan with the space armor, and he has these adventures, and it's like, okay, that was fun. Move on to the next one. Okay, another thing. Okay, that was fun. Move on. Like it's just very enjoyable. But this felt like solid, like it was deep. And then there was like the whole with his wife, missing his wife, and then having the aliens and the mythos and the world. Like I was like, oh, this is more to it. It's like it's denser.
Comic Quirk says, yeah, but I like the art on this, on a Valiant book. Reese is my favorite at DC, not biased. I love Ivan Reese too. Yeah, he does great work. Um, so, uh, so I have picked our next week book, but I wanted to give a little explanation. So, I think I've mentioned it to you before that at one point I was upset with comics, and I mean we're always upset with comics. It's because we're comic skaters. It's what we do. We hate everything.
Dude, I hate
Um,
comics. I
yeah,
only buy them so
to
that I
hate
can
them.
hate on them.
Yeah, but I was so like I work in the comic shop from time to time, and I was organizing some books, and I was organizing like a bunch of boxes with B, and so I started organizing the Bloodshots, and I was like, and these covers are cool. I started flipping through them.
Bloodshot covers are cool. And you want to talk about unbelievable art that you're like, why is this not at Marvel or DC? Bloodshot Salvation has an artist that does part of the run that you're just like, it's mind dropping.
And so I started reading Bloodshot, and then I was like, man, this book is so manly. It's so high tea. It's just like guns and muscles, uh, gore, hot women. This is awesome. This is comics right here,
Right.
you know. And then I got to like issue 6, and I was like, where the hell? I think it's issue 7. Yeah, issue 7. I'm like, where the hell's issue 7? I tore up the entire comic shop looking for issue 7, right? And I was even talking to my buddy, and he's like, oh yeah, I got a couple of long boxes. When he says a couple, he means like stacks of long boxes of Valiant upstairs. I just don't have it down here because there's no point. And I was like, really? And so I like went upstairs, and I started like he has boxes, stacks and stacks of boxes upstairs of long boxes, right? And so I saw ones that said Valiant on them, and so I pull them out and I start going through them, and it's just like Archer and Armstrong, like stacks of number 1, stacks of number 2, and just like 1 through 4 in the long box. And I was like, oh, and so I flew up to the next one, stacks of 5, 6, 7, 8 on Armor and Armstrong. So I'm like, more Armor and Armstrong or whatever. And I was like, and then I'm like, and then I find it, and then I'm like, Solar Man of whatever, right? And I'm like, it's a bunch of Solar. And then I flip through another one, and I'm like, it's freaking some other Valiant book, It's like, it's Turok. Where is this damn Bloodshot? And I finally find it, right? I'm like, oh, Bloodshot. Okay, stacks of 1, stacks of 2, stacks of 3, stacks of 4. I'm like, all right, next box. And I was like, getting there, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting close, I'm getting close, I'm getting close. And then it jumps. And I'm like, oh, why? Why is it there's a damn freaking number 6 or whatever it was? Where the hell is this number? And so I finally Google it, and I'm like, why can't I find this book? What's so important about it? Turns out it's the first appearance of Ninjak. And so I had went on Comixology. I don't
Now, let
really
me
use.
interrupt you real quick. Are you talking about the original Valiant run or the.
Yes, original Valiant
Okay.
run. Original Valiant run.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Because like
Original Valiant did a lot of that, by the way. Like, that was part of their marketing strategy back in the 90s, was like, we're going to, like, leak these characters in these books. We know we're launching the full title, like, next year, but we're going to, like, put them in this book so that they're collectible. And back
they
in those.
never did any reprints.
Well, yeah. So, like, what happened was they would do this, and then all of a sudden people would be like, oh my God, it's the first appearance. Like, I got to get this book. But because it was Valiant Comics and no one knew Valiant back in the day, like, it was like this upstart company that didn't have a huge print run. So people were going ballistic, and all of a sudden these prices were shooting through the roof. And this was during the speculator market. So people were like, oh my God. So then all of a sudden everyone was buying like 5 issues of every Valiant book. Like, because I worked at the comic book store during this time, it was like, boom, like 5 issues. I was like, geez. And it worked like charm. Like, it was kind of bad because speculating isn't why you should buy comics. But it was a genius kind of marketing move on their part, because they did, unlike today where it's like, let's do, all these stupid million different covers. Valiant was just doing like, let's do key issues. We know it's going to be a key issue, but we're going to keep it under wraps. And if you're buying the books, then you won't miss anything. But if you don't buy the books, you're going to be sorry that you didn't. And that's what they did. They made people feel like, oh shit, you can't miss a Valiant book because you don't know what's going to happen. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I tore up the comic book store looking for this damn issue. And then I realized, oh, it's first appearance in Ninjak. And then I look on eBay, I'm like, $30? Hell no. When I've been getting my blood shots for $1.
Right.
Right. And I'm like, no, you guys are high. I'm not paying $30 for one.
First appearance in Ninjak.
Sure. Sure. But
and it's like 30 years ago.
Yeah, and
it's an old book.
Yeah. So I was just like, I'm just trying to get into Valiant and enjoy Valiant for something that isn't Marvel or DC, but still superhero. And
well, speaking of just getting into Valiant, did you know you can get this product called Comixology Unlimited?
That's what I was getting at. Let me get to it. So I went on Comixology, and so I bought it for $2. Right, and so I bought the issue, I read it, and then I went on to the other issues that I had, and then I was like, oh, I finished it, and I didn't have any. I wasn't gonna go back to the comic book store until Wednesday, and it was a Thursday, and I was like, $6 for Comics Unlimited. Oh, look, they have all of Valiant on Comixology for $6 a month. That's totally worth it. I can just stop buying the Bloodshot and just read it here on Comixology. And so I read a few issues, and then I just never came back to it. Right? And so I was talking with you. You're like, oh, that's on Comixology Unlimited. And I was like, wait a minute. I've been paying $6 a month for this for the last like 4 or 5 months. I should use this product that I've been paying for.
Right.
And so, now as we were doing, this show, it's forcing me to use the product that I pay for. So it's like it's now has value to me.
Right.
Like we're like, to me, I'm not really into digital comics. It's not really, like Stan Lee said, boobs are nice to look at on the computer, but they're better to hold in your hand. And comics are the same way.
I'm the opposite, but I think it really does with digital. Obviously, it's the device that you're reading them on. If you have a phone, no way, a comic book is way better. Now,
no, yeah, I remember when I texted you today. I said, "Are you reading EXO?" And then you didn't get back to me for like an hour or so. I was walking home reading EXO.
Nice.
On my phone.
So nice. So I am a big physical copy fan of comics because to me, comics is the stories and everything, but it's also the ownership of a mark in time. There's a collectability factor. I like being able to go back in my boxes and I'm like, oh, this issue that I bought. I actually do like that comics appreciate in value. I my speculator phases are long gone. I did go through that phase in the early 90s where I was like, oh, can I buy this book? It's going to be worth all this money. Like, that's all gone. But I like that still. It makes me feel better. Like, if I buy a comic for $3.99 and I go, man, this book is like, these comics should not cost this. However, it makes me feel better that like there is some value to it that I can now turn around if I need to and sell it on eBay and cash out of it. But with a digital comic, you can't do that. It's just straight $3.99. That's it. I'd much rather own my books. That said, when I can get a full trade paperback of storylines for $5 versus, the $25 it would have cost me to buy the original issues, there's a trade-off in value there. So I do a mix and match. I buy new issues, hard copy, old issues, digital. Now, I have an iPad Pro 12-inch, so it's got a gorgeous screen.
Yeah.
It's easy to hold and just manipulate, and I can sit in bed in the dark and read comics. I don't have to worry about falling asleep and like ruining my comic. Like I wake up and I'm like, oh, I totally slept on my comic. There's, you don't have to worry about anything like that because I'm kind of anal about my comics like that in that respect.
I used to be. Now I don't really care.
Dude, have you watched our boy Starcraft's videos?
I have, but I haven't seen him like handle comics.
Oh my god, dude. Go to his channel sometime when you have free time. And anyone in the chat, you can do this. Go to his channel. He did a video series with like my comic collection.
Mm-hmm.
It's like volume 1 and volume 2. He did it in 2 different videos. And he goes through, he's got long box after long box. He just like fans through. He's like, basically, here's all the books I own. Not a single book is in sleeves. Like, not a single book. And he's pulling out books and then like shoving them back in, and they're like pages are ripping off. And like the whole time I'm watching this video, like I'm just like, my OCD is like, oh my god, what are you doing to your comics? Like, just destroying them. You have to see it. It's so funny. I got a kick out of it just from that aspect. I was like, good God, I could not do that. But real quick before we transition to your pick for the week, and I know we're running long, I did want to comment. No one read the book. Comics Quirks says that he's broke until Friday. Now, Comics Quirks, we did cover this Comixology thing. Now, I don't know what tools you have at your disposal, but if you have a tablet, and really everyone should get a tablet these days, I really recommend it. Especially if you are a comic consumer, I mean, they're great. If your budget is on the lower side, you don't want to spend a ton of money, you can get a Kindle Fire 10-inch for like $150. They're not that much, and
ask for one for your birthday or Christmas.
Or that, right? Yeah. Hey, DC Fans United, way to show up. Good to see you, buddy.
As we're closing out the show,
right?
you are not Batman.
How do you know?
Hey, while you're here, Mr. FU, who is more revolutionized, Batman, Neil Adams or Frank Miller?
Oh, good God. So what I was gonna say is get a tablet. Even if it's like a Kindle Fire, get a 10-inch HD. It's like, you can get them for $150. Get them for Christmas, birthdays, whatever, and get Comixology Unlimited. $5.99 a month, and there's so much you can read for free. And these books that we're picking every week are all available on Comixology Unlimited. So you don't have to worry. Like, you talk about going to Barnes & Noble and picking up this book. It probably would have cost you $20 at Barnes & Noble. You can read it for free. I mean, it'll pay for itself. It really will. I get so many deals on comics on Comixology. I buy a ton of comics. You get a 15% discount for having it as well. And they have these sales all the time. And right now, DC is doing a big sale on their Cosmic books. And there's a ton of stuff available, like these old trades for $5. And some of these are like big deluxe editions that are like normally like $39. You get it for $5. And I just put them on my wish list. I wait till it's cheap. Bing. There was an image sale that I got where it was like buy one, get one free on image books. But then like a lot of the image books were already marked down. So I was getting image trade paperbacks for like less than the cost of an issue. It was like $2. I was getting like a full trade.
Like you picked up those Dynamite Project Superheroes for like 89 cents or something.
Yeah. I was like, I got 6 issues for like less than $4. And I was like, okay. And Bats was saying these are really good. The art looks really good, so I'm gonna read those, and maybe we'll talk about them in a future show.
Do you
There
see
we
the
go.
comment?
DC has settled it. Let there be no more arguments. Thank you, DC, for speaking the truth.
He
Uh,
says for better or worse.
yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. I'm no hater. Um, let's see. Oh, it goes only to read, not pay. Well, then what does it say? Why, if that's
I
the
go to
case,
Barnes and Noble to read, not pay for
well, if that's the case, why do you have to worry about being broke?
them.
Maybe he's got to take an Uber.
Catch
Uh,
the bus
um.
to the mall.
So, anyways, yeah, you get all those comics free. And this, I'm gonna, I gotta say one final time, especially now the DC fans is here. This Exo Manowar book, Bats. I know you were a little bit iffy on it because
I really liked it. I
you
really
got a
liked
hang up of the original EXO, and you were like, it's not the same. And I'm telling you, my personal experience on this is since I've been back in comics since 2018, this might be the best single story arc I have read. That's how good this was to me.
I really liked it. Not I don't have any problem with it whatsoever, other than the silly like, oh, it's not the same as the old stuff. Like
Which is valid. I mean, sometimes we get accustomed to whatever we read first, and like that becomes like what
the
we
definitive.
think of. Like that's my version of the character because that's what I consumed. That's my first experience, and I get it. I mean, it's human nature. Um, nice DC fans. Nice comment. Nice. Um, it's Bats that wants to date her. Um, um, totally. Yeah. If you get an iPad, I mean, I recommend an iPad because of just because of like the screen and it's. I have an iPad purely for media consumption. I do not recommend it for anything else. Like I am an Android and a PC person. I do not like Apple. I like
Yeah, get it right. I want to marry her
right.
and
I
then get a divorce.
but I recommend an iPad simply for media consumption because that's the one thing it does. Apple does well is if you want to read books, you want to watch movies, music, like it. But there's a lot of otherwise there's a ton of frustrations. And right now, there's just not. No one makes an Android tablet big in a big form. If there was a 12-inch Android tablet with this quality of screen, I would just switch in a heartbeat. But
Oh, hey, and while we got him here, shout out to DC Fans United. If you're not subscribed to his channel, you should be.
yeah, no, DC fans is a great guy. He's been one of my best. I don't want to say like supporter, but like he's good influence. Like he's really helped my channel from the beginning. Like he kind of stepped in when I was nothing. Not that I'm super anything now, but he came in and was like, oh yeah, and it was just a real good friend of the channel and just helped be a good influence to me. And yeah, so I've had a lot of respect for him, and his channel has been helpful to me as a new DC fan to be like, I need to know more about this DC and why do people love it and all that stuff. So yeah, I just want to say this book. I'm gonna go a step further. This story arc treated it, just as a contained like a mini series or whatever. This might be one of my favorite comics of all time.
Oh wow!
Like I have to taper that though because Carrie Nord's art is only
You could use
okay for
you can
me.
use the excuse I use where I'm like, oh, this is my favorite, one of my favorite comic books of all time in this time period.
This time in 2011, this is the best. It,
Well, I use it a lot where I'm like, oh, that's like one of my favorite Silver Age stories.
I
You know?
loved the character. I loved the story. I loved every aspect about it, and the art didn't make it bad. But if this would have had like a top tier artist, this would have been like I really liked it. I'm so shocked. I knew I was gonna like it because it was Venditti. I did not know I was gonna like it like this. I was just like, there was not a panel where I was like, oh, I didn't groan. There was nowhere where I was like, oh, you should have done this different. I was engulfed in this book.
I'll say I really did like how do you say his name? Carrie or Kari?
Kari, I don't know. Nord, Mr. Nord.
So I'm not big on like photorealism. Like your EVS and your Brian Bolins are kind of
right. That kind of style of art is not mine either.
Well, no, I really like EVS and Brian Bolin, but that's where I kind of cap out.
Oh, okay.
Where I'm just like, all right, you've now exceeded past the comic book level, and now we're in fine art.
I don't think of him that way, but go ahead.
But once you get into like your what's his name, the guy who showed Batman Tweener.
Yeah, I know you're talking about his name. He's got a weird name.
Lee Bermejo.
Yeah.
Lee Bermejo's your Alex Ross, and anyone who draws in that like.
Oh, see, yeah. If this series had been done by Alex Ross, holy shit, best fucking series of all time.
Oh well, just to throw that out there for you, since you love Alex Ross so much.
His painted stuff. I'm not a big. His pencils are just okay, but when he does painted art.
So this Project Superpowers you got is Volume 2. Alex Ross did the Volume 1. Just throwing that out there for you.
Well, he did but he did like pencil art, so it's not like Alex Ross from Marvels.
The covers are.
Well, the covers are right, but yeah, the interiors of Volume 2 are actually really stellar. I was like, holy shit! Someone was in the chat was talking about like how does DC and Marvel like not have this art and like Valiant does. If you want to be shocked on art, Dynamite's this Project Superpowers that he's talking about by Dynamite Comics, no less. The current run, Volume 2,
Sergio Davila.
You're just like, what the? Why is this no-name comic from this C-list publisher? What?
Because he's putting his heart and soul into it.
Something.
He's like, I gotta be impressive. I want to work at the big two.
He should already be working at the big two.
He should be. Yeah, there's a scene in, I believe it's issue 5. I did it in one of my reviews, but the Samson character literally swings a skyscraper like a baseball bat and hits a giant in the face with it.
Nice.
And it's like the most craziest thing ever. And I was like, this is the dopest thing I've ever seen in a comic. Like where a superhero picks up a skyscraper and hits a giant in the face with it.
Comic Quirk says Esad Ribic is the best comic artist ever. Just look at God of Thor Thunder Series 2011. I will say Esad Ribic is very aesthetically pleasing. I think he's a very good illustrator, and I think his work, like Alex Ross, looks really great when it's painted. I would hesitate to call him the greatest comic artist ever because I think there's a lot more to comic art than just flashy illustration. That being said, I'm a Jim Lee fanboy, so what do I know? He loves Variant Action Comics 1000, and DC Fans has Marvels, which is impressive since he's DC Fans United. Marvels is one of my favorite comic stories of all time. Bats sold his Marvels to the bookstore because he's a blasphemer.
Because I wanted store credit for more Batman books.
Marvels is to me is just one of those. It's like Watchmen, or it's just one of those books that's like, here's an all-time classic. When you go to the Hall of Fame of comics, there's going to be comics in there that are just all-time greats, and this is just one of them. That's to me.
But yeah, so Yeah, I was really impressed with this book. I did like Kari Nord's art because it is very comic booky. It had that sword and sorcery uh, element to it.
Yeah, it was good. It was, it was better than I. The very first page of the book, I was like, but then it got really solid. Like I don't have a complaint about it. It just it
It wasn't your style. It wasn't for you.
no, it's just like it was
You,
really
you know, do
it
you know
was
who
really
Phil?
serviceable. It like I don't I didn't complain about it, but I don't have anything. I'm not like jumping over the moon like, oh my god, this is gorgeous. I'm just like, yeah, it's solid, real solid art.
Do you know who Phil Hester is?
Name sounds familiar, but I can't place.
He did like Green Arrow. He had a big long run on Green Arrow.
No.
His art reminded me of that. It had like a Phil Hester vibe to it.
Well, Comics says Quirk says he has yet to see art in a series better than Assad Ribic's on Thor. I can see why you'd say that. I mean, it's very pretty art. Um, I just I think once you go beyond the pretty and you start seeing like sequential storytelling and the ability to do that, not that Assad Ribic's art will be bad, but just I think you'll realize that it's not necessarily as impressive as you once thought. I don't know, but I mean, it's subjective. It's very gorgeous. He's definitely. I would never complain in a book that he's illustrating. Like, if he would have illustrated this series, I would have been through the moon. Like, so.
What's really important, especially in comics, is the sequential art.
Yeah.
And so I'm more impressed with having a style that works for moving the story along.
Yeah. And you know what I will say, Bats? Carrie Nord did a fantastic job in that respect in this book. We both commented on how cinematic and how this book just flowed. Like it was played like a movie in your head.
Like I want to buy it because the graphic novel is only $10.
Yeah.
Like the actual hard copy is $10, and then just give it to a total normie.
I might get it just to put it on my shelf. This is one of my favorite.
Yeah.
Like when I say favorite, I mean like top 100. Like it's.
No, yeah, I feel you. Yeah, I do the same thing. I break it down into categories.
It's for sure like this is worthy of going on my bookshelf of trades that I bought of comics that like there's certain comics like I love so much that I went and bought the trade even though I already own the books. This is one of those things I would do. Like, oh, you have the book? I would buy a trade too because I want to like give it to people.
I just want to me $10 to give it to a total random normie is like someone I know who doesn't read comics at all.
Right.
Could just be like, here, hey, can you like read this for me and tell me what you think?
Yeah.
Like just to be like, dude, that was awesome. That should have been a movie.
This is the book that I want to give to people who like only read Conan. Like there's people like that. They're like, I only read Savage Sword of Conan. You're like, all right, read this. And they're like, oh, I guess superheroes aren't stupid. Yeah. So
I'm a random normie. Give it to me.
We're at 2 hours and 44 minutes because we can't cut things short. What is your book, buddy?
So really quick, Mr. FU, you live in somewhere in the snow, which means you don't live in California. So you're not a total random normie I could just give it to. So
there's snow in California.
Not real California.
Oh, not real California.
If you live up in the mountains, you're not in real California.
All right, fair enough.
So my book, I lost it. Now where'd it go? I was just there. Sorry.
Oh, God.
Nothing but quality over here.
Nothing but quality.
Nothing but. So my book is also a Valiant book.
What? 2 in a row?
2 in a row. I was. What really caught my attention was the cover, and it's a 2012 Bloodshot Volume 1, Setting the World on Fire.
So
I have
Bloodshot.
it. I have an appreciation for Bloodshot because he was kind of the my introduction to Valiant. And
So Bloodshot setting the world on fire. Is this after Bloodshot Reborn or before Bloodshot Reborn?
it's the volume one of. I flipped through it, on Comixology. It is the Valiant origin story of the character.
All right. So its release date was February 13, 2013.
2012. It says it here on Comixology, 2012.
Are you no? I'm looking at it right now. Okay, and so Bloodshot Reborn is 2015, so that's the second series. Um, I'm looking at Bloodshot Volume 1, Setting the World on Fire, Comixology Unlimited. It's also available for $4.99. 143 pages, print release date February 13, 2013.
Okay, I read it wrong then.
But that's fine. So this
Maybe
is the first
the
one.
maybe the trade came out then, but then
Maybe.
the singles were 2012.
Maybe. All right, so I'm putting it up on the screen. So this is your book. Tell us what's the deal.
It just looks badass. Like I really like the cover with that bleeding circle into the American flag. Uh, I'm really into like
It's a yeah, it is an American flag. Thought it'd be a Japanese flag. Okay, go ahead.
yeah. So the Japanese flag would be Rei
Rye.
or the Rei, whatever. Um, you have diversity in comics in the background.
And I have sick kids in the background coughing in their sleep. Go ahead.
uh, yeah, I just thought it looked really cool. It's like, oh, this looks dope. Big, like I had said before, the old 90s Bloodshot covers really caught my attention. And so when I was flipping through Comixology while you were on a long-winded tangent, I was like, "Ooh, look at this!" And so I kind of downloaded it and I flipped through it. I'm like, "Oh, this looks badass! Yeah, this is my recommendation."
All right, you guys heard it. Next week's comic, Bloodshot, Setting the World on Fire, Volume
And then
1.
the premise sounds really cool too. It's oh, here, let me give a little rundown of this premise that they offer here. Oh no, it won't let me do it because I bought the book. Uh, yeah, every mission is a suicide mission. Yeah, I thought that sounded. I was like, that's dope. And yeah, like I flipped through it, and there's like a really dope scene where he's like getting like shot with a machine gun, and his whole body's like exploding. I was like, oh, this is metal. Okay, I'm good.
All right,
Yeah,
let me Comics Quirk's asking for some information, so let me read the rundown. Every mission is a suicide mission. Your name is Angelo Mortale. Your brother is trapped behind enemy lines and on the verge of. No, that's not right. Your name is Raymond Garrison. You've retired from the dangers of the field. But a desperate plea from your oldest friend plunges you into a vicious firefight that. No, that's not right either. You are bloodshot. You are the shade of gray that freedom requires. The perfect confluence of military necessity and cutting edge technology. A walking WikiLeaks that is a reservoir of dirty secrets that could set the world on fire. And you've just been captured. Collecting the first 4 issues of the best selling series by writer Dwayne Swarzynski from Birds of
Krasinski.
Prey
Yeah.
and acclaimed artist Manuel Garcia from Black Widow and other people. Start reading here to go to war with the series that IGN hails as a brutal book and one that is totally worth checking out.
So, uh, Comics Quirks asks, "What's like the rundown? Who is Bloodshot?" The, as Ash kind of said in reading the synopsis, he's a ex-military guy who goes through a experiment with nanobites. He basically has like whatever the hell nanobites are, like little computer bugs.
Yeah, nanites are little robots that are so small they're um, basically like microscopic, and they can replicate themselves.
Basically, he's a guy with guns who runs into gunfire and gets shot up and like does a bunch of brutal stuff. Like that's like to keep it simple. Like he can take a bunch of gunfire. He could take a rocket. He can get you know catch a grenade, explode all over the place, and reform. So you could kind of do these really cool visual shots with him.
He's kind of, yeah, I guess kind of
With
like a Punisher, but with
with
with superpowers. He's got nanites in his blood that allow him to heal and do things.
yeah, he has like elements of Punisher and Wolverine and Luke Cage, where he's just kind of unstoppable. And I don't know, he's an interesting character to me.
And yeah, the reason why he's bloodshot is because his eyes are red because of the nanite infection.
Mm-hmm.
And of course he shoots things, so it's bloodshot. Um, Bloodshot's always been a neat character. They're making a movie. The first movie in the Valiant universe will be Bloodshot, starring Vin Diesel, as Comic Works just posted. Um,
Have
yeah,
you?
DC fans also says it's kind of like Deadpool. Yeah,
Mm,
Deadpool has been so like over. Marvel has found so many ways to just be like, let's do a million things to Deadpool. Like, um, I don't. Was there a Ninjak movie? If there was a
there,
Ninjak movie, it was like
it was
under the
a.
radar.
So they did a. I watched this and it was totally awesome. It's definitely worth checking out. It's about 45 minutes long. It's a, Machinima. Is that how you say that?
Machinima.
Yeah, Machinima and like Bat in the Sun. Like those guys team up and made a Ninjak uh, versus the Valiant universe.
Huh. Well, there's a comic book Ninjak in the Valiant versus the Valiant universe too.
Yeah, they kind of came out at the same time.
Oh.
And so I knew about this because I've said this hundreds of times. I'm a big Power Rangers fan. And so I follow a lot of the Power Rangers on Instagram and see what they're all doing with their lives. And so the guy who played the original Green Ranger, he played Bloodshot in this short film. And so that's what kind of caught my attention of Bloodshot to begin with. So when I saw the comics and I was like, oh, these covers are badass. Started flipping through it. I was like, oh, these are badass. Like, so, that's kind of where like what led me towards the Valiant universe in the first place. So yeah, there is and there isn't a Ninjak movie. It's a fan based YouTube movie, but it is freaking cool. You can check out the trailer if you want. The scenes with Exo Manowar are badass because you're like, yep, they spent the budget on that. like there's a scene where Arik is sitting at a campfire like cooking himself some meat, and there's the floating sphere, and it like beeps, and he goes what, and then he like jumps in the suit and takes off. I was like, that's sweet. Did I lose you? Crap.
All right. I hope Bats did a good job of keeping the show alive while I had to
Oh,
use the little boys' room.
you didn't inform me about this, so I was like, did I lose you?
In the chat.
Oh yeah, I got 900 windows going on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it's
So
practice
yeah,
for you. Um. Yeah. Apologize. It's late. We're wrapping this up, anyways. It says, "When you guys reviewing Action Comics 1007?" Says Comics Quirks. Well,
Isn't that
I'm going to be
oh, that,
reading
oh
Detective Comics.
that's the newest one. Okay. Soon, buddy. Soon.
Yeah, I'm going to be reading Detective Comics. That's the first thing I'm going to be reading from my pull. But you can guarantee I will be putting that up pretty soon. Bendis is my absolute most popular views of reading during those books, and I do have a fun time roasting him. I mean, it's like I'm pissed off reading him, so like the only therapy I have is making fun of him because what he's doing is pissing me off. But I gotta tell you, man, that Superman 7 was a trial. I am still upset about that. Really upset. Uh, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll stop. I don't. I'll have to see how much damage he does. So what's been in the past is for me, I'll get really mad and I'll like read one of the books. I'll be like, oh look, he did such a bad job, and then I'll go to the other book and I'm like, hey, he actually did a kind of good job here. And so I'm like, okay, I'll keep going. And it flips back and forth. But I have a feeling it's coming to a head where they're both books are just really um, gonna have a problem. And Comics Quirk says, "Oh, I actually feel betrayed." Oh, this is Bats. This is like cliffhanger, like compelling here. Comics Quirk says he feels betrayed. So something happened in issue 107 that he's not going to spoil for us because he's a good guy. But what could it be?
I don't know. I'm gonna look at the last page right
Oh,
now.
you bastard! You. Um. So yeah.
Oh, it's this Wonder Twins crap.
Shut up! Don't spoil shit for me.
No, I accidentally looked at the what like I went
Oh,
to
the
the
preview, the Wonder Twins preview.
yeah, the literal last page, and I was just like,
That stupid preview is so bad. I can't believe that they put that. Hey, let us put a pedophilia scene as a preview for our all-age comics. Fucking who's running the ship over there? Ben has totally changed the story with no explanation. Why? And I feel a little upset. Well, Comics Quirks, I apologize.
yeah, I don't see
I want to
anything
tell you,
exciting.
truthfully, we understand where you're coming from. And now, sadly, you understand where we've been coming from.
Yeah, I think it's on that note. All tonight, I'm getting tired. I got to work at
Yes, you do. We ran
9 a.m.
long. Thanks for being a trooper, Sergeant Bats. And I'm looking forward to this book. So I think you made a good choice with Bloodshot. And it'll give me an excuse to start from the beginning because I have Bloodshot Salvation, but I didn't read this. And I was just going to.
Is that the new one that came out like the other day?
No, the Bloodshot Salvation was the last series that just wrapped up like 2 months ago. And then they just
Okay.
launched a new Bloodshot like right on the heels of it. It was like canceled. Like that series stops, new Bloodshot.
Yeah, I saw that and I flipped through it and I was like, because I like Bloodshot, and
Right.
I was
And
like,
Bloodshot Salvation is the one where he has the dog,
that sounds exciting.
a Bloodshot dog.
Oh yes, are you serious?
Yeah, I'm
Like
totally serious.
the dog could explode and he can reform.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's got the disease,
Nice.
or the it's it in the art.
That
That's
is
the one I'm telling you too about. There's an artist that does a couple books in it where you're just like, what am I? How did what? You're just like, yeah. So promote Sergeant Bats to LT Bats. Sorry, he's got to go to college for that. Um,
I don't want to be an officer.
yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry, Comics Quirks. You had hope. He says he had hope. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I'll review the book. I promise. It's coming out in probably a couple days. I try to not do too many reviews in a row. Like I would just want to do like one a day because if I just barf out 5 at a time, they just won't get viewed.
Well, your videos take 9 hours to watch, so you couldn't make 5 in a day.
I'm trying, Bats. I'm trying. um, my reviews have been coming down.
I know. I'm just kidding.
I've been actually trying to do better. I'm wanting to make my views now. Like I want to do less like just read the book cover to cover type, and I want to do more of just explain why the book is good, like an actual real true review does. True Ash's 45-minute reviews. That's only Harley Quinn. What issue was that? 56.
56.
And that book deserved it. Like I took the time on that one because I wanted to cover every nook and cranny of nonsense that book. I wanted you to walk away and go, "Oh, I got the thank you for saving me $4, Ash." So,
Not me. I was like,
yeah,
I don't got time though.
I'd rather spend the $4 and sit through this 45-minute nonsense.
Like, this book is stupid. I don't have time to review this book. And there's no way in hell I'm watching Ash's review.
Yes. So, Comics Quirks, please take the time when you have a free moment, if you can. I mean, you know, if I bore you to death, I understand. But my Man of Steel reviews, I think you particularly, knowing me and what I've been reviewing with Superman and stuff, will find it interesting. Start at Man of Steel #1 and how I critique those books. I think you will find that very interesting, and you'll get to know my opinion of Bendis a little. Oh, you already watched them, okay?
He also asked, "Have you thought about reviewing a whole trade paperback?" We just did.
Yeah, we just did.
We just did.
And we do it every week, and on this show called the Ash and Bat Show.
The Ats and Bash Show.
The Ats and Bash Show. The Bats and Ash Show. Wait, Bats and Ass? What?
That's the show I want to.
Serious.
Maybe
well,
Heather will show up.
I didn't have an evolution of hate for Bendis. I don't hate Bendis, to be honest. Well, I'm not going to get into this fucking rabbit hole right now. It's the end of the show. But I appreciate you watching those. We'll find a time to talk more about those. And as we do get better...
Put out more videos, man. I want to watch them.
Yeah, put out more videos. And our goal here...
Get on the daily, bud. Get on the daily.
Get on the daily. As we get better, and Bats and I, and we stop failing so hard, our goal is, #1, keep the show under 2 hours. And #2... get other people on the show, like as guests. So I would like to get you maybe on the show. DC Fans is sort of a permanent invite kind of guy. He's the kind of guy that brought me. He's like a mentor. He's like my Yoda, and I'm like Luke. Bats is like, I don't know what Bats is. He's like Chewie.
I was gonna say Ray.
Ray? What a stupid choice.
I'm good at everything because I
am. Because you are, right. Okay, you're a Gary, see that makes sense. So yeah, I guess that's the end of the show. I want to thank you guys all for watching. Anyone who is watching the recast of this on the channel and you got this far, congratulations. You have the patience of a saint. And thank you for watching. Comments below if you are watching after the fact. I love comments. Bats likes comments. I know we're not perfect. Feedback is welcome, but understand that we don't think that we're perfect. We know we need room, so don't treat us like we don't know that already. But how to be better is what's important, not just saying you guys suck. Which you could say that, but it really won't help us. So that's not going to change anything. And then that's it. You got anything to add, Bats?
I just considered myself Ray, so I am perfect.
All right. Well.
No, I'm just kidding. I would love to hear some feedback. I just want to keep improving on my videos and the streams and just get better at our hobby here.
All right. Well, you can find me on Twitter, Ash1138, and you can find Bats. What's your Twitter?
At CGT Bats, Sergeant Bats.
And tomorrow night we're going to be on a stream with DC Fans United. It's going to be a late night stream. I think it's around midnight Pacific time. We'll be posting more on Twitter once we have more knowledge about it. I think that's going on, so put it as a tentative thing. And you can catch DC Fans United's channel, Comics Quirks, both have channels. So watch them, and hopefully you won't realize that you don't need us anymore. And that's about it. So we will see you next week with Bloodshot. Same bats time.
Same Ash channel.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Peace.